Three, two, one. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Botluck Productions 100 subscriber special. Wow, we've come quite a way from those early days. Now we have 100 subscribers, technically 101, and I think it would be good to look back and see some of the older videos that I've done and give kind of a what happened back in the past. What went into the video? What are some memories I have before they flutter off? Little things like that. Thank you, Rosalia the Seeker. No, sorry. Is that Rexia or Rezia the Seeker? Again, I'm here. Hi. Hey, Rezia the Seeker. This is the 100 subscriber special. So how will this work? As you can tell by the thumbnail, we'll be looking at my reviews of Sonic Adventure, Sonic Adventure 2, the OVA, and Sonic X. I will be going over what went behind them. Occasionally, I will pause. If you have any questions, you can answer. I'll do my best to answer them. This will be mostly an off-the-cuff kind of thing because, pretty much a behind the scenes. Eventually, I will cut these so that they will have each individual episode with a commentary track. But until then, this will basically be the commentary. Expect to see the separate commentary videos of the separate cuts of this after the Frontier review. Speaking of the Frontier review, that's working. I've just finished the first rough draft of the script. I'm planning on recording next week, so hopefully by then I'm looking for a November release on that. Other personal things. I'm going to be trying to get into the JET program to teach English in Japan. We'll see how that goes. I have a feeling. Thank you, Razia. We'll see how the JET program goes. I have a feeling it's going to be I won't be able to get in until I try a second time, but it is what it is. Digimon reviews, as I said, are coming along quite nicely. As for future streaming with Sonic Frontiers, that's still on hold. The reason I haven't done that recently is twofold. It's because of my main job, which results in some weirdness. The schedules are a bit weird, and also because of my substitute job. So, yeah. Oh, thank you, Rezia. Hold on. Rezia. Yeah. Thank you. So, that's the reason we haven't been seeing a lot of streams. I do hope to one day to continue the Sonic Frontiers review and the Chow Garden review, but that's... we'll see how that goes. Until then, we're still working on the videos. So, I guess we might as well begin. So, I may toy around with the volume because we're still working on things. So, we're going to get this in. Tried to get the video to work I tried to get OBS to work with the video. For whatever reason, OBS was acting funky. So we're going to have to stream it right from YouTube. So without further ado, we might as well begin. Let's start lowering volume.
When it comes to gaming, everyone has that one game that...
So,
that one game that... No matter
this is the first review, Sonic Adventure.
It varies from person to person. Both the game and...
No.
For some, it's the story. For others, well, it's the gameplay.
So,
Still for others,
originally,
it's the experience.
Sonic Adventure...
It's playing video games for the first time.
was...
And you know what? That game that gave me that
Uh,
Sonic Adventure.
I'm Reyes, how does it sound? The YouTube footage, does it is it too low? Should I raise it, lower it? Yeah, you're pretty quiet on my end. No worries about the OBS stuff. Well, yeah, my first review was to be actually not Sonic Adventure. We're gonna lower that down, but originally Rise of Nations for the PC. But I didn't know enough about Rise of Nations to make a decent review, so
The rock music, the roll call character,
video's quiet.
experience, all right there to overload on.
Yeah. I mean, the footage is supposed to be, like I said, we'll be toying with the dust. Razia. Okay, sorry. Sorry, yeah, Razia. Got it. Razia. But yeah, originally it was supposed to be Rise of Nations that I was to review, but I didn't know enough about Rise of Nations to properly give it a review. And I took inspiration from Mandalore Gaming, which was... so this works to review a game or something I knew a lot of knowledge. And in this case, it was because Sonic Adventure, I had played the Dreamcast version, I had played the GameCube, I didn't really play the PC. We're going to pause this right now. The point is, I had played a lot of versions of Sonic Adventure, so it worked. Yeah, we're going to continue. So, funny story about the Xbox version. I remember when my brother first bought it on Xbox 360, I toyed with him the idea that he had either connected the Dreamcast or the GameCube to my television. But no, that wasn't the case. So, in the case of the story, when I was writing the review for this, one of the issues was how do I deal with the different storylines, because Sonic Adventure doesn't tell its story linearly, it tells it from the different characters. So, and depending on the reviewer, some will look at Sonic Adventure and do each individual story as a different story, a different character. I thought that there's a lot of overlap. By the time you get to Big, there's just so much overlap, it's really not worth it. So what I ultimately decided was take the footage, and yeah, I'm putting a video I wanted to make on hold for similar reasons. I know a lot about work in progress media than the game I wanted to start videoing with. Wait, hold on. Let me read that again. And yeah, I'm putting a video I wanted to make on hold for similar reasons. I know a lot more about my work and yeah, that's true. Sonic Adventure 2, I have another similar story thing I'll get to, but we'll get to that later. In the case of Sonic Adventure, it was how do I do it? I ultimately just decided make it linear. Here's the thing: as a kid, Sonic Adventure was pretty much my first game. I didn't grow up with these. Like how you wanted to do. Right. When I first played Sonic Adventure, I didn't know any of these characters. I know a lot of people get into Sonic from the Genesis era. This was how I got into Sonic. The joke about the Russian single prop plane, I've read that the tornado looks a lot like a specific aircraft that the Soviets used in World War II, so that was the joke I wanted to use, but as far as I can tell, it's just a generic biplane. But yeah, for a kid, this was different because I don't know these characters. I don't know their past. I wasn't aware of the past, and for the fact, for the longest time, I thought I was the only fan of Sonic, which isn't surprising because most of my friends had a N64. They didn't know what a Dreamcast was. They either had an N64 or a PS1. So, but obviously that's not the case. Yeah, and this was the start of me using those rose-tinted glasses. I got them at a Spirit Halloween store. That was where that joke came from, because... But, let's see. Yeah, this was one of the first times where it was like, there's a past here, but I don't know the characters, like when I was young. It's gotten better. And in the case of Knuckles, when I was a kid, I hated Knuckles' story because it was so freeform. It made no sense to me. There's that boss battle where you fight 3 times. I don't know why that boss battle was... So, haha, nice. I kind of miss Spirit. They haven't had one in town for years. Oh, just give it some time. Wait for a business to go out and Spirit Halloween will go in. It's funny. Funny thing about this sequence. In this sequence, whenever Sonic falls, there's a NPC right there that Sonic can talk to. It's right on the edge just before you start Emerald Coast, and on the Dreamcast version, there were some areas you could go back to and redo missions. They fixed that in the GameCube, but I don't think this section was one. When I first played it, I thought that character was Tails, or that Sonic was confusing her for Tails. I don't know. In fact, as far as I can tell, she just makes a comment about, "Ooh, I saw you fall." Sonic Adventure has a lot of weird things like that. Amy. I don't really have much comment. Again, this was the first time I had heard of Amy, so I didn't know anything about the character prior. I didn't even know Sonic CD was a thing when I was young. Now I do. Twinkle Park. Thing about Twinkle Park. On the Dreamcast, because the disc I had was scratched up to heaven, whenever Sonic would finish that stage, the audio would cut out. And because of, I assume, programming reasons, unless the audio plays, the story doesn't continue and you just soft lock. Apparently the way around it is you're supposed to change the audio dub. But yeah, this was another story beat, the landing gear thing. Understandable why. As a kid, this was pretty much where I didn't go any further with Sonic Adventure. By that point, I guess you have to understand, I was 6. I wasn't really that smart. I didn't know how games work, so kind of ended things. In fact, I wouldn't play Gamma until the GameCube. Okay, enough about that past. When it came to recording this, there was a lot of experimentation. I had to get an Elgato device. I connected that to an Xbox One, which can play Sonic Adventure. Link that up to my PC and record via OBS. For the longest time, I used an older computer, but because I needed video software, I had to build a computer, which was fun. It still works. I still use it. In fact, I'm using it right now. Fun little thing. Thanks to Amazon Prime Days. Yeah, Big the Cat. He doesn't add... My understanding, Big was added to the story for... I think the director was a fan, or I have no idea why he was added. Yeah. I remember back on the Dreamcast and most other versions, whenever they play the demos prior, they would always use Radical Highway with Tails. I don't know why. In fact, I remember in the instruction manual they listed you'd have to run against Eggman. But that only happens once, so... Custom built for recording videos, cool. Well, more like custom built for everything, because I use Vegas Pro that I got for cheap on Humble Bundle, and the old computer I had just tanked, and it would not work, so... And because my license would expire within a year, I had to build a new computer. That's something that, for anyone out there who's doing any video editing, there are a lot of free video editors out there. Very powerful, very useful. I generally find free video editors are difficult to use for whatever reason. Whenever there's a program that's free, they make it some of the hardest things to use. Paid editors generally are, yeah, you see, they work. They generally are more user-friendly, but then you have to pay. So, and you have to understand, I used to grow up with Windows Movie Maker. So that gives you an idea of what my video editing history was. My school did not teach me that stuff. They were mostly into learning the Bible. So, yeah, I had to self-learn a lot. YouTube, I think Catechris said it best. YouTube is Skillshare for free. But yeah, I had to build a computer. That was a first, and then got me into Linus Tech Tips. Decent YouTuber. He had some problems later, but this sequence was the start of a joke of the whole Finn, because the reason I use that is Gamma's story is considered one of the most emotional of Sonic Adventure, and I just thought it'd be funny to play up that piano sequence with playing Finn whenever someone died. Noteworthy, that's not a word. Whenever there was dramatic. So that ended up that's where that joke comes from. And whenever that sequence plays, I generally use that sequence from Sonic Adventure. I actually go back, I take the audio recording, and it's played. You can actually hear the the sea sound. Weird audio thing. Yeah, foreshadowing. Not much to really say about the ending of the games. Yeah, Super Sonic. When I was young, again, back to the young thing, I didn't know about Super Sonic, and years later when I learned, oh, you can play as Super Sonic, it was like, oh, how do I do that? Well, you have to beat the game. And I wouldn't be able to beat the game until the GameCube port because Dreamcast was conked out. Famous glitch here. Occasionally, if you play the Super Sonic stage and then go back into regular exploration, you can actually encounter two Knuckles. Whole Tikal section. When I was young, I thought Tails and Tikal were a thing. No, that's because that's as far as I got with Tails. The thing I'll say about the whole Echidna stuff, knowing what I now know about Penders, it's probably for the best that it's limited. Okay, this is an interesting editing joke. So for those who don't know, John St. John voices Big the Cat. He also voices Duke Nukem. And the original joke came from Some Call Me Johnny. He does a similar joke with this sequence where, I believe in his version, he has the Trolla-la-la-la man singing that song. Originally he wanted to use Spilled Milk, but apparently he couldn't find the footage. I wanted to do something similar, but I wanted to tie into John St. John as Duke Nukem. This was one of the harder things to edit. To do this, I got a copy of Duke Nukem. Yeah, that's Big's VA. John St. John does Big the Cat. In fact, apparently, it was a joke dub. John St. John had no interest in really doing the voice. He just did a big, and that's it. And they said, we like this, and he's like, shoot, I have to do this voice now. And according to him, he's forgotten how to do the voice. He hates the character. I mean, I can understand why Big is a weird character. Not gonna lie, when I was young, I liked Big the Cat, but first video game, I didn't know these characters. In the case of recording Duke Nukem, this was a tough thing to do because first I had to get a copy of Duke Nukem. That's not difficult. Steam has it. I then had to record Duke Nukem via OBS. That's not difficult. I've done it before. The issue was the audio. When I had recorded the audio from Duke Nukem and put it into Vegas, I could barely hear anything. I boosted it up as much as I could in Vegas, and it was still too low. So what I forgot how to do it. If I did it now, I probably could remember. What I had to do was remove the audio track from Duke Nukem, put it into Audacity, boost up the volume so it was workable, export it, put it back in, and do my best to not toy with it too much. Not toy with it too much so that it would link up well with the audio. This was... I've done... As someone who's now does green screen chroma keying, yeah, it's... I've come away, but I don't like having to extract audio from footage and then having to relink it up. I don't like doing jokes like these because they're very hinky, very problematic to work with. But like any artist, I make do. Audacity, I've used that to make some songs that are required all the time. Top Gear tip. If you ever need to do audio editing, Audacity, yes. I know I said earlier about video editing that free programs tend to be problematic. Audacity is like the one exception. It is powerful. It has worked. Yes, it's beginner friend. It's more of a beginner program, so you don't have a lot of all of the bells and whistles. But it is incredibly useful, especially when you're starting out. So take it from someone like me. Audacity works amazing, and I'll try to use that for as long as I can because it's just so useful. That's like the one program I won't get rid of because, yeah. But that's what I had to do. Got the footage of Duke Nukem peeing. I was still working with audio, so you occasionally hear reverb. I'm still working with that. It's still something I'm trying to make sure. It is what it is. Not much to say about this sequence. I remember when Halo Combat Evolved was big, someone actually made a map based off of this. I would run around it every now and then. It's alright. So, I remember seeing this sequence for the first time, and it was, this is neat. It didn't hit as hard as the Sonic Adventure 2 ending, but that was mainly because I have a little more connection with SA2. This is my first game, but I played more SA2 because the disc for Sonic Adventure was... a neat little connection with the Chow. Knowing what we know now, kind of interesting, but... Yes, Tails. I'm wondering if that little sequence is different in the Japanese dub or has different meaning, but to be fair, it's not that complex. But then again, yeah, that's why. Fun little thing here. You may have noticed I messed up here, and this is one of the mess ups that occurred in Vegas. Whenever you add text, you can copy the text and place it later in the timeline. When you do this, it will ask, do you want to make a copy or do you want to make a reference to the previous version? Now, if you want to make a copy, because if you make a reference, that's the equivalent of just putting the same thing twice. So whatever change you do on one end will affect the other. And I didn't know that at the time. This is something I still occasionally work with. I still occasionally mess up, so it happens. This is a mess up that's occurred occasionally in my editing, and it's a goof that I keep. If I ever edit this, I'll probably keep this goof just as an Easter egg, because it's a mess up. It happens, and I kind of need to be reminded of my mess ups. And yeah, you get the idea. I tried to give each character different color like this. And later I learned those birds are called flickies. I didn't know that until years later. In the case of, for this, story first and then analyzation, I based a lot of that on Some Call Me Johnny. I based a lot of my review style on Some Call Me Johnny. Mostly because his review style it makes a lot of sense. I like Mandalore Gaming, but he tends to mix things up a lot with story and gameplay. I like X-Play, but that's short order and can be a bit Technically there are 8 characters, because Super Sonic and Metal Sonic, but only in the DX cut for Metal. So yeah, he's the easiest. I wasn't a big fan of Sonic's game when I first played, because it was just I much prefer Tails' gameplay style, because I just like Tails in general, and I like the ability to fly around. Tails is very forgiving as a character gameplay style. No, excuse me. Other little hiccups. There's apparently a glitch that pops up in the first stage of Sonic Adventure, where if you don't, it's either if you push up on the D-pad or downwards, it will cause you to glitch out. It's at the first loop-de-loop. Game Grumps did that. In the case of the spin dash, I'm glad they changed that for SA2 with the spin dash, because that lightspeed dash is terrible. Yeah, pretty much. I hated this stage when I was a kid. To this day, I still dislike it, but it's not that hard to... Once you play games long enough, even stages you hate, you tend to have a little bit of understanding of how they work. When I was a kid, I didn't even know those boost rings existed, so that was new. Again, I liked playing around this location. When I was young, I didn't know where to go when I was first there. Apparently, you're supposed to get the upgrade. I didn't know that until you have to understand. When I was a kid, I didn't know how to read. I was not all there, and observation wasn't my best skill. So it took me a long time to try and figure out how to get past that stage. And fun thing, when I was a kid, my dad would watch Tech TV, and I remember seeing it, I think it was a review that XPlay did, but XPlay has never done a review of Sonic Adventure. What I think it was is it was a promo for the Dreamcast or something, and I remember seeing footage of Sonic in a go-kart and hitting a certain that Badnik has a name, I don't know it. In order to, in other words, it's to Lava Shelter, Hot Shelter. And because I saw that footage, it helped me continue the story. Weird thing. Yeah, I was honestly surprised at how much I liked Knuckles' stages when I was replaying them, because I hated playing them just because I didn't know where anything was. I didn't really know how they played. It was frustrating, to say the least. Now, that being said, it's a lot better than SA2, where they nerfed the radar. Apparently, I've heard they did that because they needed to expand time for the rankings. It's still a bit excessive. It wouldn't be until the GameCube version that I actually was able to beat many of Amy's stages, because I think I only ever went as far as the first stage with Amy. I did not like Amy's stages. I didn't even know how to really describe Amy's stages, because yeah, the radar is worse in SI2. I'll get into that in the SA2 review, but I didn't know how to use Amy in SA1. I thought you were supposed to fight the robot. Nope, you're not supposed to, because if you attack the robot too much, it gets overpowered, and then you can't stop him. In the case of Gamma, yeah, I never played him on the Dreamcast, so all I have to go off is the GameCube version. Fun fact, Gamma is actually the slowest character in all of SA1. If you take any character, even big, and play them in Gamma's stages, you'll be able to go by pretty fast. But no, Gamma is slow. Big the Cat, Sega Bass Pro Fishing. I remember going to Chuck E. Cheese and playing Sega Bass Pro Fishing. I missed that game. I didn't even know it was on the Dreamcast until years late. Well, until I played it on a demo, and even then, I didn't know how they played. As far as I can tell, these two are... It's the same. As far as I can tell, Big's Fishing is similar to Sega Bass Pro, and it's similar. As a kid, I didn't understand why we couldn't grab the frog, so... Why we couldn't grab Froggy, so that was weird. You rather quickly learn of what's the right way to fish. It's... If you've ever played... If you play Big's game a lot, you'll quickly figure out what's the right place to throw the rod, and you'll always catch Froggy. It's hilariously simple once you know the trick. There was yeah, I liked the arenas. They did, considering that there's a lot of reused assets in SA1, they did a good job with Knuckles, making the stages work for Knuckles and the rest. But yeah, audio recording wise, not much to really say here. The thing I will say, when it went from playing these games, I didn't realize this at first, but there is some controller differences between the different versions of Sonic Adventure. Apparently it's due to... from what I've understand, the later versions have a tendency to overcorrect on the control stick, but that can easily be dealt with through. Well, actually, there isn't really much you can do to fix it on the PC version. I know that mostly from the SA2, from people talking about SA2, but in the case of SA1, there are some slight changes on how it plays. Yeah, this was something I don't know if it was just the Xbox version or if this was always present in the Dreamcast version, but the game is rather sensitive when it comes to the control stick. I don't know why. I'm not certain what happened. It's just how it is, and it can be a bit finicky at times. You make do with what you have. So, but yeah, control-wise, weirdness. Bad stage. So about the textures, that was also changed. When I first played long ago, I didn't realize that they had changed so much texture-wise. I just assumed they were using better graphics. No, it's different textures. There are videos online that show you what they've changed. Yeah, that's a quirk of SA1. They changed that up to in SA2 to give them actual mouths. In the case of the audio, yeah, that's basically what they did. It was a lot of it was first take. On second hearing, I can hear John St. John. There isn't much else to say. Just it'll come up when it comes up. Funny thing. So, music. When my dad bought this game for me, he apparently had a tendency to skip through the first cutscene, that whole rock opening, and oddly enough, that was also the case with the game Test Drive 6, which played cars. And my dad's a little... Yeah, it's voice acting. You don't see this too often, but a lot of early games, whenever they did voice acting, they just got a random developer or janitor or someone to just do the voice acting. It was, and from what I understand, in the case of Sonic Adventure, they had to coordinate between when they got the actors. Sega partially had the developer partially had to have pictures of the actors to get an idea of what they looked like before selecting them. It's supposed. I've read that somewhere. I think that may have been SA2. The jungles. I'm gonna pause this right now. Quick thing about the jungles. I like that the DX port actually added in a map, because that one section in Mystic Jungle, I don't know what they were thinking when they made that map. It's too easy to get lost, and I don't know why they thought it would be a good idea to put that in. I'm happy they added a map, because without that map you're going to get lost. That being said, if I ever get into modding Counter-Strike, I'd like to turn that map into a Counter-Strike map because it's pretty cool. In the case of the arrows, this is the only time I've ever done arrows. I'm never doing that again. That had to be manually done, and I'd have to do something special for that. Yeah, I don't know why they turned the lighting engine off. I'm assuming it's because of the GameCube, but the GameCube's stronger than the Dreamcast. I have no idea what happened. It's weird because I'm certain the GameCube can handle the Dreamcast abilities, but I don't know why they turned it off or why it was turned off in later versions. I know they based it off of early versions. I know they based it off of the different ports. I know that. I just don't know why they haven't gone back to fix it. Mission mode. I'm fairly... Looking back at it now, I probably should have paid more attention to mission mode. But mission mode is kind of a nothing thing. It's really not worth talking about because... outside of an achievement, you don't get anything from mission mode. There's nothing unique about mission mode. But what I know about now, on the Dreamcast, there were DLCs, and apparently most of these DLCs for Sonic Adventure opted to, what was that? It's mostly set dressing, but they sometimes added things like a small mission, like go around Station Square and find Santa, or go around finding bamboo shoots. Little side missions. Nowadays we'd consider that like a mod, but back then it was a DLC. Apparently, in Radical Highway, there was a DLC mission which was a contest with, I want to say, T-Mobile, and the idea was you were supposed to, with your Dreamcast connected, you were supposed to do it was a time trial. You were supposed to finish the stage as fast as possible, and you'd win something. I don't know the specifics. There's somewhere. And I'm wondering if those missions were adopted into SA1 as those missions, if those DLC was adapted in that way. Probably not, but only other thing about the missions, depending on what version, they've changed some of the graphics. On the GameCube version, because Sonic X was a thing, you can find graphics of Chris Thorndike and Sonic. Chow Garden, they nerfed this. When I was young, I kind of used the VMU, but I didn't know how it worked. I don't know how the Chow race works to this day. I don't know how this race works. As far as I can tell, it's just watch your Chow and that's it. There's no input. They say there's input, but as far as I can tell, there isn't any input. Could be. It makes sense that they did. Might be time-based, because I remember them using GameCube clock for various things. Yeah. So, for anyone who tries to get into retro gaming, a lot of older games don't work on newer hardware, and that's because a lot of these games are unclocked. And the reason was they would be going off of the CPU of the computer, or they'd go off the internal clock of the computer. So when you have a computer that isn't going that fast compared to what we have nowadays, that makes perfect sense. It works. Hey, Crisby Designs, 4 a.m. here. Nice. We were just talking about internal clocks and Sonic Adventure. But yeah, if you ever play any older titles on newer computers, you generally have to what's that word? You have to frame lock the game. Otherwise, it results into some weird inconsistencies. Lego Island is a good example because there are racing sequences where because it's going off of the computer, if the computer's too fast, the racers are just going to freak out like it's, I have no idea, the machine spirit going wild. So you have to time frame lock. Oh yeah, I remember you have to set that up on the Virtual Boy Advance so you can play certain Pokemon games without clock problems. And in the case of Pokemon games, it gets worse because that went off that battery, and if that battery breaks, there goes time issues. There goes all the time events. So yeah, VSync and all that for PC games too. Yeah, it's gotten better. I'll say this, it's gotten way better for VSync, but it's still a problem. So yeah, the re-releases, I've already gone over a lot of my history with this. There are videos out there that go over what's been changed. The best example I've seen are some of the graphics. Sorry, some of the textures, because the Dreamcast version, the graphics they use look a little more realistic, and they've actually have some trees that were removed in the GameCube port and later ports. I don't know why they were removed. I know for artist direction they changed the graphics. I don't know why they removed certain things like trees. Like I said, when I was young, I just thought, oh, that's just a stronger game. That's just what it looks with a stronger hardware. No, they changed a lot. Yeah, I learned this later. So, think about the Game Gear games, and I know this because of Some Call Me Johnny. Whenever he does the Sonic hacking contest, and it uses Sonic Adventure, he uses the PC version of Sonic Adventure. But I've seen sequences where he's playing the Game Gear games. I don't know if he's using the older PC port, or if he's using the newer PC port, but with a mod that downgrades it. I'm not certain. I think he uses the latter, but I could be wrong. I don't know why they removed the Game Gear games. That was a weird omission. Even years... It was a weird addition to begin with, but it was still fun to have. But to this day, I don't know why they omitted them in later ports. I mean, I can see why now, because they want to sell the older games, but back then I mean, we didn't have Sonic Mania. We didn't have any of the Sonic re-releases that we used to. It was weird. Personally, I'd say get the GameCube release if you can, just for out of the box. But if you're willing to mod it, get the PC release, because it's not that difficult to It's not that difficult to change it. It's real simple. I never really played Super Mario 64. Like I said, I had Dreamcast. Never played Bubsy 3D, but I've seen enough reviews to know more about it. So, like I said, Tails is my favorite gameplay style. I kind of wish they used more of that in later games, but I don't really have much to add to what Past Me has said. It would be interesting to see them do a re-release or a remaster. if they did, I just wish they don't get rid of this version. I wish they would keep the original. They would keep the original just for players to look at. But slight thing here. Dreamcast version you can actually run around here. I don't know why that was changed in later versions. I didn't really spend that much time in the Chow Garden. I still liked it, but that's a slight hiccup. I'm still learning, trying to do my best with voice acting, so there are slight hiccups. Here's that ending. Well, no, if you want Metal Sonic, you kind of need to do the Chow Garden. Yeah, but the camera, it's easy to work with, so. And of course we have that ending. So, when I originally did this, you see this with a lot of my older videos, I had a tendency to put a credits, because I thought, that's one way to credit people. Turns out I was one of the few people that ever did that, so after a while I decided to stop that because that added in too much rigmarole. It was too much of a hassle to get working that it was just maybe best I try some. I just put all that information in the lower part, description. So that's why my late. But it took me a while before I removed the credits. It wouldn't be until Digimon. So we're gonna get ready the SA2 review. But any questions or anything you'd like to know more? Like I said, it was one of the first reviews. There's, right, both credits and intros have fallen by the wayside a lot these days. Well, I mean, the algorithm really doesn't. There's not. I still keep the intro because that's just what I do. But the credits, yeah, there's not really much reason to do the credits. Some people still do them, and there are some cases where they say you have to put an end credits, but most reviewers these days just put them into the description. And unless you have a lot of weirdness, the description has a massive character limit, so you're not having too many trouble with it. In the case of other behind the scenes, before I started recording of SA1, one of the things I had to ask the company I work for was, what's the policy on social media? And they said, as long as you're not wearing uniform, you're okay. And I was like, sadly, so for the algorithm, yeah, descriptions does work decently for credits, but still, yeah, that's fair. I don't put much of in the descriptions anyway, so I have a lot of the limit, but it is, yeah, it's not the same. It does help with editing, but it's not the same. Other than SA1, I don't really have much else to bring up with SA1. There wasn't much in the way behind the scenes because it was fairly straightforward. It wasn't like Mothman attacked or anything. So I guess we might as well move to SA2. Only noteworthy thing with SA2 was this was developed during Christmas, and I was working while I was editing this, I was actually working as security for a Lifetime movie. I'm not going to say what. It's just for security reasons. But yeah, while I was I believe it was the Sonic Adventure 2 review, where while I was working on this, I was also providing security for a Lifetime film. So it was weird to do two elements of filmmaking, even if all I was doing was just security. But that's beside the point. Logo done by my brother. Took this in from SA1. You may have noticed that at the start, I'm way more energetic with here than SA1. Better lighting. I was learning a lot more with what to do, and being energetic was one of the first things, so yeah. SA2, first game I played on that was the first game we got on the GameCube. Still favorite. We had 2 copies on the Dreamcast because one of them failed. Yeah, I say what you will about the GameCube version. They did a good job of adding this opening. The Dreamcast version was very simplistic. It works, but yeah, I like how they did it in Engine and SA2. And yeah, I played most versions of Sonic Adventure 2. So, think about SA2, about that recording. Where was I going with this? SA2 was one of my first GameCube games. Yep, Smash Brothers Melee and Metroid Prime were the others. For the longest time, it was just SA2. I forgot what the second game we got for the GameCube. Oddly, we did get Smash Brothers Melee because Smash Brothers, but we never got many of the other Mario games outside of Mario Party and Double Dash. Like I said, we weren't really that big fans of Mario. We much prefer, like I said, we came from the Dreamcast, and then later the PS2 and Xbox. Yeah, I really liked gaming. Oh wow, I didn't get the notification that this was happening. Congrats on the fun. Yep, that's right, 101st subscribers. The notification did go through. That's weird. But welcome to the SA2 one. This is much like Sonic Adventure 2. I find my SA2 review is a lot better than my SA1 review. So we might as well continue.
Military base or weapon. Why is he raiding a base, you may ask? Well, his grandfather's diary talks about a weapon he was working on. Basically, Eggman wants to collect inheritance. It also helps that the terrorist side is paying big bucks for new weapons to destroy Bomb Site B. Anyway,
yeah, so rather quickly, as someone who has a history degree, I, for the longest time, thought SA2 was a post 9/11 video game. Yeah, no, it actually is. It came out like months prior to 9/11, and it surprises me about how relevant the story captivates that era of just, pop culture being, oh, who are the terrorists? Well, the terrorists are oh, we got to be careful about people invading. We got to be careful about what we say because the Patriot Act. It's funny to me because it fits that era perfectly, and I don't know how they did it. It worked better than I could expect, and I think anyone could expect. But that was why I added in the Counter-Strike sequence. Think about that. For those who don't know about Counter-Strike, if you just get Counter-Strike out of the box, you have to be careful because when you boot it up, it doesn't use 1.6 graphics, it uses the Counter-Strike Condition 0 graphics. Because whenever you boot up Counter-Strike and Source, it'll automatically use the HD graphics. It's just one of those things. This was again another weird story thing. It's easier to weave the story this way, but it's easier to weave where things go. Plus we have SA2. Plus we have Sonic X for help. As someone trying to make the 2000s retrofusic post-apocalyptic thing, yeah, exactly about that decade. Looking back at that, as someone who grew up with that era, the late 90s, early 2000s, it was interesting to see all that technology move. Having floppy disks become disks, having beige computers go on to this iPad, iMac all-in-one computer, and it would be years later till I got into PC gaming because we didn't have a PC. When we had PCs, it was just they weren't for gaming, and we had no way to guarantee that any games would play on them. So it would be years later before I got into PC gaming, and by that point, all the old PC games I wanted to play, they were starting to phase out big boxes. So I'm happy that GOG and Steam sells a lot of those old titles, but I do miss going to Office Depot and seeing the budget titles and finding what like Star Wars and Rise of Nations on clearance for years. Very much so. I was a teen in the 2000s, and the explosion of digital technology was amazing. There's a good reason why I liked watching LGR. LGR is amazing. I'm so happy he allowed me to use his footage for the Digimon Tamers review. Hats off to that man. But yeah, did anyone want to know what it was like growing up in the early 2000s? Play Sonic Adventure between the California being radical and grinding on and doing extreme sports to Bush talking about invading Iraq. It was a weird time of tech and culture, and I don't think we'll ever encounter it ever again. Yeah. Makes me wonder if I ever have kids, how they'll deal with.
There's just a slight problem. They only have 2 Chaos Emeralds. That is until Rouge finally reveals herself.
That was a deliberate joke. You kind of had to do that with Rouge.
Not only that, she knows of 3 of the emeralds before offering her own emerald as a sign of loyalty, not wanting to pass up on being...
Yeah, when I first played this, I didn't fully get the story. Again, I was very young, so I didn't get much. It's still amazing that they got this to work on the Dreamcast, and just that leap from SA1 and SA2. Again, another Counter-Strike joke. And I get why they do that thing with Amy, but first, one quick funny joke. Okay, so I know why they do that with Amy. It's because they're doing a reoccurring joke of she's confusing every hedgehog with Sonic. Funny thing about this sequence, if you notice Rouge, whenever she appears, she's not there. She just slides into picture. It's one of the weird things about SA2 where it's all rendered in engine, but you can see some of the hinky cracks, and it's gotten worse with later ports.
Turns out Sonic is being detained on Prison Island, and the two are trying to break Sonic out. One Mexican standoff later, and Eggman leaves, knowing the island will blow up. With Tails' assistance, Amy is able to meet up with
This sequence, I know they were trying to hint at Gerald early on, but it makes no sense. standard opening. I've always tried to figure out where this is located in the game. It's somewhere. I just can't identify it. More Counter-Strike jokes. I had to get my brother to help me with that. When I was a kid, I used to think Maria and Amy had some connection, but no, they don't. I was confusing the dress, I think. So, around the same time, yeah, you hear that. Around the same time, Snapcube did their live redubbing of SA2, and they did that infamous laser piss, which I reference every now and then. That's where that joke came from. I am glad they did that, because that was a fun thing to write in. Pretty much. Looking back at it, the story doesn't deal that much with the Chaos Emeralds. They're important, but they don't do much. And this... Oh, yes, it was glorious. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Knuckles doesn't add anything to the story. I know in early builds they said it was only Sonic, Knuckles, and Eggman. I'm skeptical of that because it takes a while for these stories to come about, and plus Rouge exists, so... also, apparently the president's based off of Bill Clinton. I thought it was George Bush, but no, it's Bill Clinton. It is possible that you may have been the first reviewer to reference... It's possible. I doubt I was the first one. I suspect there were others, but if I'm the first... Very nice! Okay, enough Borat. Terry... Yeah, this was one of the weird editing things. You occasionally encounter some of the Japanese... This was a fairly rushed dub from what I understand. Then again, it was the last Sonic game on the Dreamcast, so things were already hinky to begin with. Yeah, Knuckles doesn't do anything in this plot. You can make a fake. That's kind of cool because Sonic's personality was partially based off Bill Clinton. Yep, partially based off of Bill Clinton. With a combination of Santa Claus and I'm gonna stop. And Michael Jackson. That little text thing, that was a reference to American Idol. The whole, text in to see who you're gonna vote for. No one does that anymore. No one does that texting to vote anymore. It's all through an app or something. Even though she can glide. I didn't understand this when I was a kid. I now know what they were doing with that, but... yeah, that, oh, I apologize if I hurt you. Yeah, you punched her in. Snapcube Eggman was 5 years ago, and your joke was 3 years ago. Huh, I knew Japanese Sonic wasn't quite the same as the American Sonic, but dang, dude. Okay, so I wasn't the first. Yeah. I knew Japanese Sonic isn't quite the same as American Sonic, but dang, dude. There are some slight changes. Not that bad, though. It's gotten better. They've synchronized both the Japanese and the American Sonics pretty much, but back in the day, there was this combination of, is it Archie or is it... Jaleel White, but it's changed. Yeah, this was one of those sections that really shows the story writing. They did the whole Eggman knew. There's a lot that goes on that sequence, and here we have the fin. First time I used it outside of Sonic Adventure.
Tails, just witnessing his friend die, gets angry and fights Eggman, winning. But the joke is on Tails. Despite being wounded, Eggman was able to...
In later versions, they show that Tails saw Eggman take the emerald, but... testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Anyone there? So... Thank you, OBS. Thank you for messing up. Yeah, OBS messed up on me. I don't know what happened. Sorry, we're gonna go back. OBS did something. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I don't know what happened. OBS just conked. As I was saying, yeah, Rouge's story inclusion is a little complicated, even knowing everything. Sonic X did it better, in my opinion. From Sonic Frontiers. Yeah, I suppose you're right. It could be the Canadians. Thing about Sonic being able to use Chaos Control, I think it's implied in previous games Sonic knows how Chaos Control works, but... So, if you're wondering why I did that, in gameplay, I don't like where, in order to get the complete game, you have to finish the story multiple times. Especially with SA2, it's not that bad in SA2 because you kind of need to finish both sides to get the complete story. But they build it as this, choose which side you're going to do. Are you going to destroy the Earth or are you going to save the Earth? They've changed that in recent versions, recent adverts, but it was a little frustrating that, to get the true story, you have to beat the main plot, which means you have to go through the entire story again. As you can tell, I don't like replaying stories multiple times just to get to the end, and it's part of the reason I'm not a big fan of Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog for that matter. We'll get to that in those reviews when I do them, but that was that. It was because I just went through the story. Why are we doing this? But to be fair, SA2 does have a good story. In the original, yeah, I bought the Blu-ray from Discotech. You can find most of Season 1 and 2 on YouTube because TMS recognized that this is useful, but back then, the original idea was to either A, record it directly via a stream, oh. This is from Little Abner, by the way. I thought it was relevant. But in order to record, I'd have to record via the Xbox, which then means recording via the YouTube app, which means using OBS. It was a whole thing, and I have an easier way of doing it now, but back then it was like, I have to watch the entire video just to make it work. That's one of the improvements I've done in later videos. Black Mesa reference, one day I'd like to do Halo. Half-Life, not Halo, Half-Life. would like to review Halo one day.
reprogramming the Ark to crash into the Earth.
Yeah, this is one of the weirder turns in Sonic. Not the weirdest, but given everything that's come prior, it's different. It's still a good story, but it's one of the weirder twists that they've done.
They have to act fast as the Ark is falling rapidly. Putting aside their differences, both teams decide to team up and stop the Ark, all except Shadow. As far as Shadow is concerned, his promise to Maria is fulfilled. Amy pleads with Shadow, causing Shadow to have one last memory.
Yeah, there's... I don't really have much to add here. There isn't much story-wise to bring up. It's not like I had some weirdness. They've gotten...
Whoops.
Well...
Shadow quickly speeds off to assist in stopping the
He just runs. He doesn't even skate. He just runs.
Shadow isn't the only ultimate life form, as his prototype is still alive. And for some reason, a giant lizard. Don't ask.
It's explained in Shadow the Hedgehog. That's...
ending this.
And here we have the story just keep going because it's got to keep going. In the Japanese dub, Shadow was asking, no, was that Chaos Control? It wasn't. Is that Chaos Control?
Sonic and Shadow go super and beat the lizard into submission.
Because as we established in SA1, violence answers everything.
Yeah.
With the giant lizard destroyed, Sonic and Shadow use the last of their strength to use Chaos Control to teleport the Ark back into a stable orbit. Sadly, this proves too much for Shadow, resulting in Shadow falling to Earth, finally fulfilling his promise to Maria. It's a somber moment as everyone takes in all that is
So, not much to really say story-wise. I don't have any wildness. And of course he'll return because back when this came out, the MCU was doing this big thing of, oh, this superhero will return in Endgame, or this superhero will return in Thanos' War for Lego. It was a reference to that, and the fact that one day I'd like to review Sonic Heroes.
Take Rouge, for instance. If you just play the hero side, it's never really explained who or what Rouge is. Is she a mercenary, an outside force, one of Eggman's henchmen? To get the answer, you have to...
Yeah, that's something I didn't realize going back in. They don't really explain Rouge in the hero side. Dark side, they explain her definitely, but not hero.
I personally think this is the story's strongest element. It entices the player to play both sides.
This was a pointless thing to add because Eggman already knows where they were, but I guess we needed to use Pumpkin Hill for some reason. No, Rail Canyon. It's Rail Canyon.
The story's second strongest element, the themes. Compared to past Sonic games, SA2's story...
And here we go back to that post 9/11 thing.
Sonic is arrested for a crime he did not commit and being sent to what amounts to Guantanamo. That there is a government cover-up. That Eggman is threatening to use weapons of mass destruction. As the hero side story trailer says,
this incident increased worldwide terrorist activities.
The writers did this on purpose.
Yeah, that's partially where I get that post 9/11 thing, post 9/11 analysis, because they say, increase in worldwide terrorism. Well, that wasn't really a big... It was there but here it is now, and that was kind of where that wet joke, that thing came from.
The elements are used to enhance the story, not dominate.
And here they are using the Dreamcast version because...
I mean, it understands how to use different points of views, use of dark elements. I mean, it sounds like a good story, right? Well...
The plot has some issues. First of which is...
Not as bad as Sonic Adventure, but...
His contribution is limited. Knuckles doesn't even factor
So,
the story until halfway through.
one of the things when I do for research is I oftentimes not only watch other reviewers, but I oftentimes go to TV Tropes a lot. And they listed this one crack theory that apparently Knuckles is a druggie and this is all a drug trip. Yeah, and it is in the description if you want to read it. It's different. I don't know where that came from.
And there's the whole she reminds Shadow Maria. But this just comes out of nowhere. Honestly, I think Sonic X handled this better.
Yeah, it did, in my opinion.
Add some connection between characters.
And yeah, I had to use the Sonic X footage, Sonic X to help with the story because that ending gets weird. I think the idea is Eggman launches the cannon, but then Sonic puts it in, and then this happens. happens.
Something big
It's
happening, and that Rouge is looking for
it's
something in the
confusing.
world, but that's it. At most, the other characters just comment that the arc was shut down for some reason, and no one knows why. Even the foreshadowing of Sonic's cell makes no sense unless you play the entire story. This is something SA1
Yeah,
did better. In all
the
storylines,
foreshadowing in
it's
SA2
Pepper. You didn't
is
know
not
why,
as good as
but
SA1, and
you
it
quickly
doesn't
learned there was a reason for these vision
fit.
quests. Not so much in SA2. Then you have plot holes like the Eclipse Camp.
I mean, I could tell you it was because Joe made a Faustian deal with a demon alien in order to create Shadow. But Shadow the Hedgehog wouldn't
That's
be released
Shadow. That's Shadow the Hedgehog. We don't.
in the context of SA2.
That's just what they did. We don't know why that canon exists. We don't know why a pacifist needed that. RY Gun has a hind attack helicopter. I assume they got it from Shadow Moses.
But didn't have a valid reason to have Supersonic.
When I asked my brother about the ending, he said that the hero and the Dark story had a perfect ending. That both Sonic and Shadow were racing to decide the fate of the world. It was the perfect ending. The final part feels just like an excuse to get Supersonic. At best, the final story gives context
Yeah,
to Shadow's
there's not much to really say behind the scenes from recording this.
I
It's,
find that the Dark Side story is pretty interesting.
you know, I mean, I finished SA2 first from SA1 because,
Compared to the Hero Side story, which is basically
you know, it was on GameCube first, and I played it more on GameCube and Dreamcast, so
coming together to form a team. And while we're on the subject of things I like about the plot, it's the justification of Tails in a mech. Many reviewers point out that it makes no sense for Tails to be riding around in a mech suit, that this was added in at the last moment. I disagree. Let's remember that Tails is busting Sonic out of a military prison. So of course Tails is going to get as much firepower as he can when he goes up against the United States Army. As a
yeah, that's something I think a lot of reviewers don't like to bring up. They say, oh, Tails shouldn't be in a mech. There's no reason for him to be in a mech. Well, I mean, he's going against Gun, which is the U.S. military. I think he would need some extra firepower to take that on. Even Tails knows that. And that was when I added in the little, oh, that's very good army, because it works. Again, post 9/11 joke.
I do feel it's better than the previous game.
Well, actually, that's to be post Gulf War.
Describe the story is as follows. For every step forward the story takes, it takes a step back.
But enough of the story. Let's get into the gameplay.
Like before, there are 6 playable characters. This time, however, there's only 3 gameplay styles.
So
Sonic and Shadow take up the
there isn't really much. The big thing about this storyline where weirdness occurred was
completing a stage will
Tails confirmed libertarian,
Yes, you heard me.
I
right.
suppose.
SA2 is the first game that started grading the player.
So
on
the thing
their
about
Sometimes it's fair,
this
sometimes it's
about
wasteful, and
gameplay
other
footage.
times it makes no sense. And yes, there is an emblem
In
for
the
getting
case
all
of
8
Rouge,
stages.
Enough of the macro. Let's open the micro.
when I originally
First are the
played
Sonic
this,
stages. Our Sonic
it was
stages.
originally hard to
Main
get
goal is simple.
finish
Reach the
prison
stage as
tail
fast as possible.
Rouge's
Get to the end
mission
of the game.
in
If you're feeling deja vu, this
prison
is
hall,
surprising. SA2
because that is a hard mission because you have a time limit and things are located everywhere. Somehow I got an A rank on that mission twice, and that ruined the review because I was hoping to get an E rank. But no, I got an A rank, and it's, oh good, ruined. For this footage, I messed up because I kept using that one sequence over and over again of Shadow using that. Yeah, I didn't know what soap shoes were back in the day. I later had to research. Soap is now owned by Heelys, but they don't sell the soap shoes anymore. One day I'd like to own soap shoes just because of SA2. Thing about recording. When I originally recorded SA1, one of the problems I had was I thought I had to split the story from the gameplay, and I initially did that with Amy, but I found it was too difficult. And when I did SA2, I later got a stopwatch, and whenever a sequence happened in-game, I would check the stopwatch and I'd record it in a book when that would happen for when I would do editing. As I would later learn, a lot of YouTubers do that. Cat Icarus, in his What to Do video, he says have a stopwatch and record when it helps in editing. Do it, it helps.
Now, to be fair, most of the abilities are
The context-sensitive button movements, I don't know. It wasn't that bad on the GameCube or the Dreamcast. Something happened with the Xbox version. I don't know what happened.
also destroys any speed
But
you may have built up. And don't even bother using this
any
ability to
other little
destroy enemies.
changes
The homing
in the
attack is
PC
way
version?
better, except for when you have to fight Sonic or Shadow.
Apparently they edited how they changed how
There's also the Magic Hand ability. All it does is turn enemies
Magic Hand. I don't know why that ability was added in. It's such an unnecessary ability. But movement-wise, for grinding, in the original version, and I've later read this from a YouTuber, whenever you were grinding, in the original version you could fine-tune how the characters would lean when you were grinding. But in later ports, they upped the control stick a bit, and it makes it so that any little fine movement you have is gone, and the character just leans one way or the other. I didn't know that when I reviewed. I didn't know that when I first reviewed it. I now know that that's the case, and it helps. Yeah. Yeah, I bought a PlayStation 1 Classic back in the day, mainly for Metal Gear Solid, which isn't really worth it anymore because they re-released Metal Gear Solid on PC on GOG, and they're planning on re-releasing it on Steam. So I have no reason for a PS1 Classic other than PS1 emulation, and I don't have that many PS1 games. Maybe when I do Digimon Rumble Arena. In the case of Eggman and Tails, I much prefer what they did with Gamma with a time limit, mainly because it forced you to really move. In the case of these characters, they give you a lot of time, and because there's no time limit, they load things up with just stage hazards and the like, and it gets tiring after a while. I still like them, but I don't like them as much as I did when I was a kid.
No, what was changed was the Vulcan cannon, the somersault of this gameplay style. The only use for the Vulcan is to destroy boxes. Sometimes it can harm enemies, but the chances
Yeah, the Vulcan cannon is weird. I know why they added it's because of the boxes. Technically, you can use... That's the main reason I don't like it.
The problem is, yet again,
The Vulcan cannon was added in because of the boxes and not much else. You can damage enemies with it, but because you're already using the lock-on laser, it's not necessary.
Another change to the gameplay is the inclusion of a health bar. Rather than relying on rings to provide protection, Eggman and Tails have a health bar.
Yeah, the health bar was weird. It doesn't add much.
However, I do find this mechanic to be something of a mixed bag, because while this means you can take more hits, even more if you have Eggman's upgrade, you still lose rings if you get hit. Now, I understand that this is a staple in Sonic games to lose rings if you take damage.
Again, indicative of apparently this game's playstyle is based off of Gunstar Heroes. No, Gunbuster, I think. It was some Sega Saturn game that Sonic Team worked on. As I said, I didn't grow up with the Saturn, so I didn't know that.
Which, given that your lock-on is dependent on where you turn the mech, it makes for a somewhat clunky gameplay experience. The worst part of the controls are the jumping.
Now, I get that these are mech suits.
I don't know. When I was a kid, the jumping was a lot better in SA2.
Why is there so much platforming? Look at this. These mech suits barely cover the height of a box. This wasn't a problem in SA1. In that game, Gamma was rather floaty, gaining some pretty impressive height. Here, the mechs control like bricks. Except Cosmic Wall, by far the best stage and my personal favorite.
Burning Ranger. I think it's Burning Rangers. Let me quickly check. My understanding was they based Gamma and that on Burning Rangers.
As for stage design, I guess it's alright. My biggest complaint is the length. Because there's no time limit, I guess the developers decided to make the stages somewhat
Yes, Burning Rangers. That's what it was.
too long. Without the time limit, these stages feel as though they keep going and going.
Never played Burning Rangers, but when I forgot who did a review, they said it was they brought up Burning Rangers, and when I later found footage, it was like, oh, that's where they got it from.
Solid foundation and just destroy that foundation. But let's backpedal a bit.
Knuckles and Rouge are the playable characters for treasure hunting. The objective is simple. There are 3 MacGuffins
So,
that you must find.
thing about the treasure hunting stage, while I was...
Midair or even in enemies.
We're going to pause this right now.
Same as SA1, but man,
I remember watching a video about how to get how the so apparently the way how the randomizer in SA2 works is each emblem location, so each emerald location is set in a specific place throughout the map. So the game will randomly select one location, and then from there it will calculate the next location, which is always the furthest possible spawn point that can be done. And then the third emblem is somewhere in between. So if you're ever having trouble on SA2, that's how you find the emblems. And when I'm glad I saw a speedrunner go through that, because when they explained that's how the emblem locations work, it made SA2 work a lot better. It made it easier to review and go through. Now the problem is, because it's random, this took up a lot of footage. It doesn't take too long, because once you know where everything is, it's real simple. But then you can get things like Security Hall, where thanks to RNG, you can get a good score even though you're trying to do pretty bad. And it doesn't help that the radar was gimped in SA2. According to some people I've talked to, they suspect it's because of the ranking system. They wanted it that you spend time searching for the different emblems, for the different items. It's still, I don't know why they thought that was a good idea, because the emerald shards still spawn in those locations, and you can actually go out of sequence and collect them. And that actually happened during when I was collecting footage, because there were sequences. It was mostly with Knuckles, if I remember correctly. No, it was with Knuckles and it was with Knuckles is what I'm saying, that I was able to go around and find emeralds out of sequence. It was weird, because it was like, I'm not supposed to collect you, and yet here you are. So, another thing about the hint system, it's going from SA1 to SA2, I really missed a call, because the hint system is just funky.
Two priestesses. What? These are the two priestesses? I guess. Or this one. It wants me to find a texture on the wall of Sonic that's in the shadows. Okay, that's rather specific. Or this one.
Yeah.
Lost child. Dead end. In a spiked car alone. Am I looking for an emerald or a dead child? Oh, it's just an enemy.
Funny thing.
On to the next emerald. In a spiked car.
Yeah, that actually.
And then there's
so
much of these levels.
Yeah, that was weird, because in the same game I was playing, and I got the same hint twice, and it was like, really? So you're telling me it could have been in another spike? I don't know. That what they did with treasure hunting in SA2, it doesn't make any sense. It's tiring.
It's already a pretty wide open area at the bottom. Then you realize that the entire stage is vertical, meaning you now have to go start exploring in the space above you, which can take time.
A lot of time.
Makes some of the most frustrating elements of the game. Whereas in SA1, these elements work together to create a fun time. These elements are just become frustrating. And no stage.
They become frustrating. Yeah, I don't. When I write my scripts, they're generally written with the idea that I'm speaking with them, so they sometimes have some weird grammatical elements. So. And sometimes I don't read further, so I get some weird inflections. I'm getting better with that, so hopefully that will go away, or maybe that'll just become just how I do reviews. And this is my problem with Prison Hall.
Did I mention the time limit?
5 minutes should be plenty. Here I go.
This stage has so much backtracking, it's not fun. What's worse, I had to play this stage twice. Why, you may ask? Because I somehow got lucky on
Yeah,
I didn't have to deal with these saves. What's worse is that even on the second try there was no issue with the saves. Yeah, the one time I wanted that stage to be annoying, and it decides to be nice. I didn't deserve that A rank.
And that's
to this
another
day,
issue with these
that was
stages.
one of the
Randomness.
weirdest A
When you
ranks
work
I ever
on these
got.
stages, you need to find the emeralds as fast as
Because
possible. Now,
to get an A rank, you really have to do well, and I wasn't trying to get an A rank on that stage, and I hate that stage.
so you have to be
I
fast, but since the location
really
is
hate.
random, it's not impossible to find these MacGuffins in
I
a
don't.
reasonably fast time. So you have to get lucky. Now I get not everyone will be wanting to A rank these stages, but trust me, when you play these stages enough with this radar, this hint system, this level design, and random item location, your blood will boil.
Now,
Yeah.
to be fair, they did
It's
Both Knuckles and Rouge move fast, climb, and glide, meaning you'll be covering ground rather
now.
efficiently.
Yeah, that was something I rather liked about these two. They really did better. They did better with the controls with Knuckles and Rouge. How long did it take for you SA2? The video was for. I believe it took 3 months. So you have to understand, I work a 7-on, 7-off schedule, so I only have a certain amount of time in order to collect footage and editing. So, and when that happens, I can usually, when it comes to writing, usually, if my review is about 20 pages, that's about 40 minutes long. In fact, I'll look it up right now. I still have my... There's the glasses back, and there's the reference to the next review. Hold on. Let me pause this real quick. So, if you ever hear me talk about this review as X number of pages, it's single space, I think 18 font on Microsoft Word. And in the case of SA2 was 12 pages. Oh, no, wait, hold on. That's the old draft. This is halfway. This would probably have taken 40... Oh, I don't have the SA2 review. What happened to my draft? Oh, that's bad. Lost media, y'all. Apparently, I don't have my SA2 review. Apparently, the script to the SA2 review is incomplete and gone. So, I would harrow again. Oh, no, there it is. It was stuck in the SA1 review folder. No, still 12 page. What the point is, it takes about 3 months for me to do a review, and that's partially because of work and everything. And I'm mostly doing this as a one-man operation, so I don't really have that. Everything I do, I kind of have to do on my own. I now have help in the form of someone who will look over the review and someone who does the art. But in general, it takes roughly... So it was 12 pages. So roughly it takes 3 to 4 months. Time to upload the Botluck wiki. No, never mind. I found the footage. I found the script. The script was found. It's 12 pages. But yeah, it takes me roughly 3 months to do a game review. In the case of a television show or a movie, movies don't take as long because that's just like an hour of things to watch. But a television show, that can take months because I have to watch episode after episode with notes on what happens on each episode, and that can take time. So...
Then you have Biolizard, the most frustrating boss in the game. To damage it, you need to hit this device on its back.
I don't know what happened during the review on this case. When I was reviewing the game and playing this section, I had trouble fighting Biohazard. I've normally not had trouble with Biolizard. But for whatever reason, the game kept messing up. I don't know if that's because of the Xbox port I was using, or if it was always like that. but I remember on the GameCube port, it was a lot easier.
Until you learn these canals.
Yeah, that happened.
This happens far too often and far too randomly. When you get into situations like this,
You quickly feel your heart race.
Yeah, that was a bad cut. I should have cut it that I landed right near it. First time I experimented with music mid-review.
It's so much better.
for a game released in 2001, it's aged like a pretty decent wine. The texture work, I think, makes the game. Everything feels real enough that you don't question why a blue hedgehog would exist in the same world as a human. It's an odd mix of realism with cartoon that I feel makes the game look timeless.
I still like this aesthetic. I wish they did more with it, but I understand why they don't, because they're trying to keep it copacetic. The mocap though is bad. It really is like watching a Disney show, a Disneyland show. Yeah, slight hiccup that should have flown up.
Tails goes for more upbeat music befitting his young nature.
I will say about the musician who did Knuckles songs, I feel sad for him because they messed up his name in the credits and that's never been changed. Hopefully one day they'll change it, but
Rouge is more jazzy, 60s spy-esque, almost something out of Austin Powers.
during the review I wanted to use some Austin Powers footage, but I couldn't find any, and it was like, okay, we're already going too long, so...
And then Shadow with that music.
So we're gonna pause again, and I'll tell you why.
The type of music that makes you want to go, it's a phase, Mom!
So, there's a lot to unpack in this picture. Number one, the face paint. That is a Juggalo reference. I am not a Juggalo. I just thought it would be funny to do that face paint. I'm probably not going to... I don't know when I'm going to use that again. Maybe. I'm debating that. I still have the wig somewhere. This is why Spirit Halloween is such a fun place, because you can buy all the costuming you need for reviews. The makeup was that. So about the My Little Pony toy. I bought that from a clearance shop because at the time I was into My Little Pony because of a mod called Equestria. Whoa, okay, Equestria is getting at me. I got that because I was a fan of Equestria at War. And I thought it would be funny. Hey, let's have this guy wearing Juggalo face paint with the emo wig, and he's having a My Little Pony toy, and he's saying, "Don't worry, Mom, this is a phase, I'll get past it," because everyone says, oh, it's not a phase. I was hoping to keep that My Little Pony toy set as a future prop, because it's so perfect as a prop. I don't have it anymore. And the reason I don't have it anymore is later the next year, I had enlisted in the Navy. And because I would be moving, I decided, okay, I think it'd be best that I get rid of this, because I don't know if I'll ever be able to do reviews ever again. So let's get rid of the ponies. If I need pony toys, I can get them. I can buy them in the future. They're not that difficult to find. I may have to use the more G5 stuff. I don't like G5. Give me G4 with Twilight Sparkle, Sunset Shimmer, and Adam Sessler. Yeah, that's Gen 4 of My Little Pony. It's Twilight Sparkle, Rainbow Dash, Sunset Shimmer, and Adam Sessler. That's just G4. That's just My Little Pony G4. Kevin Pereira comes in. He makes this comment about how friendship is magic and how you really need to buy this new tech toy. Leo Laporte flies right in. Okay, I'm going off your head. That's an old joke. But yeah, no. The My Little Pony toy doesn't exist anymore. I gave it to a friend so that her kids could play with it. And I don't have it anymore. And it's probably for the best. I don't know if we'll be seeing Juggalo. Someone make this a new thumbnail. I don't know if we may be seeing Juggalo Norton soon. We may see Juggalo Emo Norton in the future. I don't know if he'll have the Brony toys, but we'll see. We will see. This is the face you all wake up in the morning.
It's, in my opinion, some of the best music in the franchise. I also consider the voice acting to be some of the best that the franchise has had. Special mention to David Humphrey, giving what I consider one of the best depictions of Shadow
Yeah,
the Hedgehog.
I like David Humphrey. I don't know why he wasn't rehired for Shadow in future installments. He's perfect.
However, not everything is perfect. A major issue is the lip syncing. When the game was localized,
Yeah,
the
so
match the characters' voices to their lips, resulting in cases where characters are talking without lip movement. In some instances, Japanese dialogue was even kept in. What's worse is that the character dialogue will oftentimes interrupt each other. Now, sometimes this results in scenes that sound realistic.
You're comparing yourself to me? Huh. You're not even good enough to be my... Make you eat those words.
But
if they so two things about that sequence. If they ever do a remake or a remaster of SA2, I hope they keep that timing, because it is some of the best unintentional timing I have seen a game do with voice acting, because it does feel like actual communication. Someone interrupting someone. It's perfect. It works. I wish they will keep it. If they ever do a remaster, they keep it. Funny thing, for anyone who's coming from the Schmuck Squad for DigiDestiny, I actually had asked if Coffin Jockey do that sequence, and he did an amazing job. He had Duskmon and Gary have that interaction of speaking to one another. And I recorded that sequence, and I took footage that I had taken from SA2, and because here's the thing, if you ever do any reviews, hold on to your old footage. Hold on to any old gameplay footage, because you may need it in the future. I took that footage that I had from SA2, from the SA2 review. I took the soundtrack, a separate soundtrack, and I was able to splice together that sequence using Coffin Jockey as both Sonic and Shadow. He did an amazing job. Like, I didn't have to do any real editing on the timing. Beautiful. The only thing I had to change was I made it so that Sonic interrupted Shadow, because you have to do that. That is tradition. Sonic has to interrupt Shadow in these sequences. And that's like the only edit for that I did on that. Thank you, Coffin Jockey. You did an amazing job on that. Your editing, perfect. Your vocal direction, your timing. Oh man. So.
But more often than not, it sounds weird. I can understand why people find it annoying. But what is by far the worst element is the sound mixing. So often the music will
Yeah,
sound
this has gotten worse over the years. They've increased the volume of the song, of the music, every time, and it's caused
compound
problems.
this issue. I have read that this has gotten worse from port to port. Word of advice, if you play this game, have the subtitles on. Outside of the main game, SA2 is brimming with extra content.
Yeah, SA2 has a better Chow Garden. In fact, what they use in SA1 is what they used SA2 they used in SA1.
The stats of the Chow so you can race them. SA2 went a step forward by including a stats screen, a kindergarten where you can teach Chow skills,
Which I didn't fully understand at the time.
while later ports will add in the Chow Karate, which is basically a Chow fighting. What I'm trying to say is that
So, I'll get to it later.
greatly enhanced the Chow Garden, enough that you can almost argue it's a separate game. In addition, there's
So, thing about the Chow Garden and Chow Karate, and by the way, there is a fan game that takes similar to the Chow where you do Chow racing. I don't think they'll do any fighting in it. I actually backed that Kickstarter. I think it's Yoggles. Quick question to anyone out there who's seeing this in the future. Did any of you ever take the Chow and use them for fighting? Because I know... Excuse me. I know one of the things you could do with the VMU and the Game Boy was you could take the Chow and transfer them to another system and fight with one another. Did anyone actually do that? And the reason because I know, like with Digimon, and I have the Digimon toy. There's this big thing of fighting with friends, and I've always wondered, was there ever any underground fight club with Digimon or Chow? If there wasn't, I applaud you guys for not talking about it. Hats off to you guys for not bringing up Chow Fight Club. But for real, did anyone ever like have the Chow in like VMU or memory card and go to house fighting and racing? Because I've never heard of this. I know SA2 was more popular, and I just wondered if that was something that actually happened.
Multiplayer where you and your friends can play against each other in the different gameplay styles. The Sonic stages pit you and your friend in a race in something similar to Mario Kart. Treasure hunting involves you finding emerald shards as fast as you can, and mech combat is, well, it's team deathmatch. I don't really have to explain much more. Personally, I find the Sonic and mech combat to be the most enjoyable. Outside of this, you also have the Chow Racing and Chow Karate, and all the enjoyment that entails.
Funny thing about that. So, in the original script, the original idea was that there was supposed to be footage of my brother and I looking like we were gambling. Chow Warriors, come out and play. Oh, I'm sorry. Chow Warriors, come out and play. Chow Warriors, come out and play. But no. In the original script, when I talk about you can play multiplayer with the Chow Karate and Chow Race, the original idea was my brother and I were to have like Monopoly money, and we were to make it look like we were gambling on who would winning, like it was a cockfight or a greyhound race. I opted to get rid of that sequence because, number one, the implication, and number two, I was going into the military, and the last thing I want is someone going, hey, you were doing illegal Chow fights. No, that was a joke, but you know how things are. People don't like that. So that was a cut joke. It's still there from how I talk, and I think I still have the footage, but it's been cut.
You also have kart racing. It's no Mario Kart, but it can be a fun little time waster from time to time. And of course,
I did
there's
like
mission.
the kart. It's not perfect, but
SA2 has 4 optional missions to complete, each with a ranking.
The extra content that SA2 creates is, in my opinion, one of the best.
yeah, I remember
It's less like a game.
I was going to work at a game exchange, play and trade, and one of the questions they ask is, what's your favorite game? And it's SA2 because they have so much content. It's
First version is the Dreamcast version.
it's still my favorite. It's still one of my favorite games, and it's kind of the standard that I put other games to because SA2 just has all that content.
Honestly, though, the main reason you get the Dreamcast version is for the Chow VMU and special effects. Yeah, for some reason, the effects present in the Dreamcast version aren't necessarily present in the game. Going from the Dreamcast to that of the game, now this version is the one that most players play. Not surprising.
Pretty much. That was the one I know most of my friends had. If they had a GameCube or a Wii, they had Sonic Adventure 2. Which gets into weird with Sonic Heroes because Sonic Heroes was meant to get more people in. Well, it's like you already have Sonic Adventure 2. But I'll get into that in the Sonic Heroes review if I ever do that. Side note, I never played the Chow Garden or Chow Karate with the Game Boy. I never saw that attachment in stores. If I did, it was probably in the early days when that had just been released. But when I started really getting into it, it was gone. It was not there. It was in no stores, as far as I can. If it was sold, I never saw it, and it wouldn't be until years later that I saw the GBA cord. Not much you can really say about that. Kind of wish with the Chow Garden, they allowed it connectivity to a smartphone. How much more is this? Notable thing about the PC version, this is something I didn't realize they've changed. One of the things they changed was in the PC version you could actually spin dash up a wall on the Chow Garden and clip out the boundaries. I used to do that all the time on the GameCube, but apparently that was removed, which is a weird thing to change when you change that, but you don't change the voice. You don't change the vocal mixing.
At the time this game was published, it was pushing what was capable on the Dreamcast. Even today, this game looks good. The cutscenes, even with their weird interrupting, I find add a bit of a charm to the game. Giving it
And it's still decent, some of my favorite dialogue.
mistake, but still, and the extra content. What you get here is just amazing. What could have been improved on is the story and meshing. The story's alright. I like what was being attempted. However, the ending needed
Yeah, it's Sonic X. I think did the story better, which we'll be hitting up soon. Although I'll first need to do something real quick after we look through this.
I get that 40 games often requires a level speed drop. I get that. But I don't agree with selling it as standard in the battle port as separate DLC. I get that
That's the weird thing. If you want to get the battle port, you have to buy it separate, and as far as I can tell, it's not like you buy the original version and you get just the Dreamcast version. No, apparently it's still just the battle port, just with none of the content. I don't know why they don't just offer it as is. I don't think I'll review Sonic 06. There are some problems with that game, and I just... To this day, I still recommend it. It's my favorite Sonic game. So we're gonna let the credits run through. What about the Sonic 06 fan remake? I'd have to look at it. But if I were to review Sonic 06, it would have to be Sonic 06. It can't be the fan remake. It can't be like a project. It'd have to be 06. Because 06 is its own thing. The ending is a bit of a unique situation. I'll bring that up once we get to the OVA, because there are some interesting things with the OVA. There's Dick Alnor again. Thank you, Dick Alnor. You do a good job. Yeah, and then there's all the games I use. I've since stopped that. So, quick side note. I need to use... We're gonna pause for a moment. Consider this like a breather before getting to the OVA and 06, because that's going to be a long thing. So let me quickly get some things done real quick. Talk amongst yourselves, get a drink, use the restroom, standard things. So I'll see you guys in a bit. Consider this like a 5-minute break. So, yeah, return. Yeah, that Juggalo photo. Yeah, but I'll consider that. We'll consider that when I get more subscribers because, yeah, I don't think that would sell well. Unless you want to scare little children. I'm going to get the next video up. Yeah, that was a joke thing I wanted to do. I think I still have the blueprints for that, but if I do that face paint again, it'll probably be a little different. So OVA. So my history with the OVA came. My dad picked it up, got it for me, for basically my family to watch. I really liked it. It was a good show. So for this sequence, if you're wondering, there's my brother helping me with this. So, yeah. So for that sequence, we recorded that via a phone. I added in a filter. My dad at the time liked to pick up truck straps that he found on the road because he thought he could use them for something. He never did. But for that, what we did was we took some of those straps, made it look like that I was tied up, and hit with a hose. Now, if you're wondering why I'm being put into a ransom video, in the previous video, and I didn't do it that well, there's a sequence where a pipe wrench hits me on the back of the head, knocking me out, implying that the person doing that knocked me out. But the sequence goes by so fast that I don't think anyone notices it, and the joke just flies right off. We had to do that sequence a couple times, and much like the My Little Pony prop, the pipe wrench doesn't exist anymore. It was given away to a friend. So this is where we get more of the background stuff happening. When I was doing this review, one of the things that was causing problems was getting footage. For those who don't know, the DVD of Sonic, the OVA, is incredibly hard to find. And I actually had to use old... By this point, they had already changed the trailer, so I had to use the old footage. So, but in order to get footage, I couldn't go the DVD route, because DVDs of the Sonic OVA go for like hundreds of dollars. It's really not worth it. And I do have a VHS copy, but I don't think I have a VHS player that works. And I don't think even Goodwill sells them anymore. So, in order to get footage, what I had to do was you can still find the OVA online, because as far as I can tell, Sega does not care. They do not care about the OVA for any reason. So what I had to do was I found the footage on YouTube, and I asked them, can I use this for a review? And the guy said, sure, I don't care. It's Sega's anyway, I don't own it. So I was able to use that footage. And yeah, that was how I had to get the footage. The method I used was basically live recording, but it's gotten better in recent years. And yeah, they used the Pokeball sound effect, which even as a young kid I caught on. yeah, they don't explain anything in here. It's a different continuity. They added Catgirl because Catgirl. So the reason for this joke is there's a lot of lore dumping that happens here, and it's pretty weird because none of this ever amounts to anything. So I thought it would be funny let's take this whole lore dump, get me really unhappy, and be like, Eggman, you're doing a bit much. Can you not? So yeah, that was Chaos Codex. That was Codex Chaos Demons from 40K. At the time, I think it was 7th edition was on its way out, and we were going into 8th edition. So I think that's the 7th edition Chaos Demons Codex. It is what it is. They don't have codexes anymore. They just have the cards. Of course, just sleeping. It's looking back at it now, I think I would have commented on a little more on just how different Sonic, how tone-wise this is from recent material. And while we're at it, I'm disappointed that for what was that? Sonic Prime isn't going to reference any of this. I would love to see the OVA Sonic make an appearance. And again, we have a Sega Saturn. Stargate. At the time, I was really into Stargate SG-1, and so I wanted to use this sequence because it fits. It's like she's not taking this serious. And that's still a fun little joke. I don't know what they say in the Japanese dub. I did track down the Japanese dub. But as far as I can tell, they just took the English subtitles and layered it over the Japanese dub, so I don't know how different it is. Pretty much. That was a political joke. At the time, Trump was president, and so I thought it would be a fun little, oh, hey, look, his tower's still standing despite everything. In hindsight, that probably was a bad call to do, but these jokes can be funny, and it's still a funny little gag. Yeah, when I was a kid, I remember taking this to the daycare to watch. I really feel sorry for the teacher who had to watch this. I am so sorry to that class and that teacher. So sorry, please. And Knuckles with his infamous hat, which is about the only thing from this OVA they keep using. So this is something I didn't realize at the time. If the cut seems weird, it's because in the English dub, the original OVA is a 2-parter. And when it was released in the US for the VHS tape, they just haphazardly slice the end of the first to the start of the second. This is roughly where it ends. And the only reason I knew about this was I watched the Japanese dub, and there are some slight changes with how they do things. Again, remember, I grew up with Sonic Adventure. I didn't know that this was based off of Sonic CD till years later. One day you need to see the OK KO Sonic crossover. They reference a lot of the OVA. Yeah, I've heard about that, and that surprises me that Sega was allowed with that, because I know with Archie, they reference the OVA on occasion. They've referenced Sarah, but according to the mandates, they're not supposed to touch the OVA. The reason, I think I say it later, is because of, what was it? This referenced an older version of Sonic they don't want to talk about. And here we got the Starship Enterprise. Yeah, Sonic wears clothes. That's what he wears. I don't know. I like how fan artists oftentimes draw Sonic wearing that as like, yeah, totally radical. I'm not gonna lie. Learning that this is based off that this was a pilot. Well, pilot. It's an OVA that was intended to later become an actual TV show. I would have loved to have seen this become an actual show because the art style is great, the storytelling is decent. It's an interesting world that I would have liked to see. We got another exposition. I don't know their justification for this. The lava comes in, destroys the glaciers, the world flies up. That's not how things work, guys. That's not. But I guess that's just the story plot. That's right, people. Destroy the glaciers and the world's mess. Yeah, that's one of the weirder story things, even with Sonic Unleashed, that they made it realize that's not how this works. I like that design of the tornado. I wish they used it more, but wishes is wish. This sequence, so that was, when you're a kid and you see that, it's a funny little joke. As a grown adult, you look at that and go, that is creepy. How is this allowed? And then you realize, oh right, Japan does that on occasion. It is, in hindsight, that is a creepy sequence, and from what I understand, there's a sequence later where Sora, when you walk away, Sarah is breastfeeding one of the kids, and apparently that's gotten censored in a few versions. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting to see how much they've changed Eggman Robotnik over the years. He went from causing Adam and Eve to whatever IDW does these days. Yeah, I don't know. Again, I don't know why they did the cat girl. Yeah. Still my favorite sequence. If you're wondering how long it took, it didn't take that long to do this review because it's a movie, and because it's on YouTube, I could easily watch it in my off time, and once it's done, it's done. Yeah, they kept adding things in. So, there's a reason I like reviewing movies, because they're once and done. They're only about an hour, 30 minutes, so I can just watch it, move on, and get on to other things. If I review a television show, I have to watch every episode. And these shows can be upwards of 60, 50 episodes, and it's like, I gotta watch every one. And it means I have to scrub a lot of footage. There's a reason I like reviewing movies. Scrapnik Island would reference that sequence. Yeah. This ending is why I kind of wish I would have seen more of this show. I'm not certain why it was canceled, why it never went anywhere, other than just low ratings. Sonic isn't that popular in Japan to begin with, so but yeah, it's a different world and a different look at Sonic that I really wish Sega would allow, because the mandates they've done, they really control Sonic, and it removes a lot of the craziness that we see, like the OVA. Yeah, it doesn't fit on brand, but we've already established, but like the idea of multiverses are already a thing, and we've already established that Sonic has changed a lot, so it could be different. It's just they don't bother much with it anymore, and that saddens me. Yeah, as a kid and even later, they don't. You have to infer a lot with this film, and if you don't get CD or the Genesis games, it further confuses. Like I said, I went from Sonic Adventure to this, so I don't know where things happened. But like I said, I already had a history with the OVA, so I already had a lot planned, and I want to appreciate Doug Walker for reviewing it. That was actually back when Channel Awesome had their forums up. The OVA and Digimon the movie were two films I wanted Doug Walker to review. That and Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. I don't think he's reviewed. No, actually he has. He's reviewed. No. I know the OVA and Digimon he's reviewed. I don't think he's done Zombie Island. Someone's probably going to say, yes, he did. I haven't followed Doug Walker in a long time. But it was rather glad to watch Doug Walker review this. Kind of wish they did use this Knuckles, but no, they went with Comic Relief Lughead. Funny enough, they still kind of use this Eggman. Funny thing about Eggman, in the OVA, he's voiced by one of the actors from Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which, given that most of this voice cast was from the Houston-based ADV, it's not that surprising. So we got a lot of Houston alumni. In the case of Sarah, about a year later, the voice actress of Sarah would post on Reddit that she gave the VHS tape that she had of the OVA to her nephew, and it was like, I commented on there and saying, I feel sorry for what I said about you in the review, and she's like, yeah, okay, because Sarah's voice isn't that great, but she's a good actor. But yeah, ADV. I didn't realize that this OVA had a lot of high quality companies work on it, from Perot to, well, ADV. So yeah, Neon Genesis, the guys that worked on Neon Genesis Evangelion worked on this. And this is something I also miss. I miss those little tiny movements that anime does. Usually you only see it on high value quality animes, like movies and the like. And I miss that of this era of anime. These little movements, these little greeble things, they just don't do it anymore. And it saddens me. Back in the day, I thought... I had seen the Sonic CD animation before, and I always wondered where it was from, and I assumed that the company that worked on that worked on the OVA, but they didn't, which is a bit weird, but yeah. Funny thing about the music. For the music, there is no OST. It was never released. It was never published. So you don't have... To get the music, you have to use reconstructions. Roughly a year after I posted the review, someone had posted on YouTube that they had found the Sonic OVA OST. Apparently, they had a friend who worked at the company have all this soundtrack and allowed them to dump it. And it's available. You can find it on YouTube. It includes some of the working versions and some later cuts. They also include some unrelated work that may not have been used with the OVA. My friend Chairman Palasov, who works on Sons of Mobius, which is a Hearts of Iron 4 mod, but with Sonic characters, I remember contacting him and saying, hey, if you need music, they do have... The OVA soundtracks have been found. So if you need song, they're right there. Here's a link. Here's a YouTube link. It's not that you can use them for your project. I don't know if he's going to use it. I don't know what the plan is on that. Given he's in Russia and what's going on right now, I really hope he hasn't been called up and isn't deployed. I hope he doesn't get drafted and deployed. Because the man, he's smart. He knows how. As someone who tried to mod Hearts of Iron 4, Equestria at War, the man, he's smart to be able to get that mod to work, get his mod to work. And I really hope he doesn't get drafted. I really hope I really hope he's okay. But yeah, for the soundtrack, for the longest time, the only music you had for the OVA were reconstructions. And they're not perfect. There are some slight changes in the music. But they do have the original working soundtracks have been found. Or at least most of them. As someone who's trying to get into the JET program, I should probably learn how to actually pronounce those properly. But it is what it is. But yeah, I was surprised that ADV did this. And there's a story about this coming up that I'll go into more detail. So I liked his voice. I liked Sonic's voice in this. Saddened that they don't use him. I understand why, because he's a different actor from what Sega would use. Edmund McNeil, again, Texas Chainsaw Massacre alum. Great actor. Still one of the better ones in my opinion. No Mike Pollock, but pretty much, yeah. Of course, Mike Pollock. So, I had to do that joke. Yeah, I apologize. I want to say I apologize, ma'am. Yeah. I don't... Yeah, it does... This was, again, another thing with the voice actor. I don't know what they did, what happened. I don't know what her voice direction was. I don't know if she had head cold. It doesn't work. So, I'll get into this in the Sonic X commentary about watching the Japanese dub. Just know, I did my best to try and watch the Japanese dub, but as far as I can tell, it's different from... I don't know if there's any writing differences. So... Yeah, I cut that off just to make like, oh hey, there, I forgot his name, Laura White, Jaleel White voiced it. Actually, given how Jaleel White is currently selling Jaleel his own Kush, I'm wondering if he'll ever voice Sonic ever again. I doubt it. I highly doubt he ever will. So, those are the footage. They were originally rented. I didn't know that bundle existed, but it was only in Australia, and Australia is weird like that. Again, the music situation, I've already brought it up. I used to listen to the reconstructions all the time, but... So, for the longest time, people had said that the Sonic X was somehow derived from Sonic the OVA. I haven't found any evidence of that, and given that there are different companies involved, it doesn't seem like there was any connection. If there is, it's so minute it doesn't appear. Yeah, slight joke. I don't... Yeah. That's the VHS copy I have. I didn't know that at the time, which makes, again, the OVA an interesting little thing. Would be interesting to see where they went with that. So when I read that ADV was split into 3 companies, what I wanted to do, my guess would be that they maybe use the same design doc. That's probably what happened. Given that this was late 90s Sega, they probably used a lot of influences. What I initially planned with the ADV thing, ADV split off into 3 companies, and my original intention was to call each 3 company and ask, "Hey, do you guys own the rights to the Sonic OVA?" Because someone's got to own it. Someone has to own the rights to it. And I realized rather quickly this wouldn't work for a couple reasons. First is, I'm a nobody. At the time, I think I had like 20 subscribers, so... Oh, I'm a guy with a YouTube channel. I have 20 subscribers. You mind telling me if you own the Sonic OVA? No one's going to listen to that. They're going to look at me as some weirdo. But I soon remembered the mandates about Sega being very protective of the OVA, and I realized it really wouldn't matter who owns it. It doesn't matter if one of these 3 companies owns the OVA, because Sega ultimately owns it, and Sega can say what they will about it. Now, it wouldn't surprise me if one of these companies still owns the OVA and just doesn't know it or just doesn't care, but for the time being, I have a feeling if there was any re-release, it would have to be through Sega. Other than that, I'd like to one day see this movie on the big screen at like the movie theater as like a Fathom event. That would be fun. But yeah. Yeah, in hindsight, with Sonic Generations and the split of classic Sonic and modern Sonic, that's a bit weird, and it wouldn't surprise me if moving forward, at least with classic Sonic, they do more references of the OVA. But we'll see. Yeah. So I do hope one day we get a re-release or remaster or something, because it is a fun OVA. If it ever comes out, I probably will do a quickie review on it. Especially with what's going on with Digimon. So, for those who don't know, I did a review of the Digimon movie. And this is kind of relevant because of that. Discotech later announced that, hey, we were able to get a hold of the Japanese movies, and we're going to be adding it to... We're going to redub them. We're going to provide it as an actual footage. We're going to provide the actual movie, and we're going to redub them, and we're going to provide the original movie sans Angela Anaconda. Well, I have I say I have a copy. It's this version of the movies that I was going to use, but if I'd much rather support the Discotech release. So any of these old movies I review in the future, I'm a little hesitant, because I say we don't know if this movie will come out, a re-release, because then we get something like Discotech where they re-release the Digimon movie. So it would be interesting to see them re-release the OVA in some Blu-ray fashion, but at this point I don't think I would do I don't know. That's going to be one of those weird... We'll see where it goes. It's weird. I'm connecting Digimon to Sonic. So, we're going to get rid of the Sonic X review. But yeah, that's kind of what went into the OVA review. Like I said, it didn't take that long to get the OVA done. Let me look up how long the OVA was script-wise. Where was it? Because the OVA is not long. It was only the 20-minute review, and because it's just 20 minutes, I can get it done extra fast. Did I not record it? Did I not? Oh, there it is. OVA review. I didn't put it in the right folder. 7 pages. This is one of the shorter reviews. So now we're going to get to the penultimate review. This is the one that I think I basically got ready. This is the review that had pretty much signals the real start of Botluck Productions as a doing things. Hold on. So here we have Sonic X. So originally, when I was getting footage for the review, my initial plan was I'm going to have to record every episode individually via the Xbox and Elgato to the computer. I decided against that and basically went with the Blu-ray, and that actually forced me to buy a Blu-ray player for my PC. I specifically bought a CD player, which really helped, because funny thing about this, when that actually hit a copyright. I don't know, I had thought I did it short enough that it didn't, but no, it hit a copyright, and I think it's... So, funny thing, when I was watching the footage, I originally, because I had watched all of Sonic X outside of maybe like 2 episodes in my youth, and I saw them multiple times because I kept watching for kids, my original plan was my original plan was I'm just going to watch I'm just going to watch the Japanese dub and see what was different, because I've heard the Japanese dub is very well regarded. And you have to remember, this was before Discotek had the Japanese dub as a Blu-ray. Because for the longest time, I thought the Blu-ray that they had the footage. It doesn't. It does not have the Japanese dub. So I started watching the Japanese dub of Sonic X on YouTube because it was readily available, and it was readily available for the last 10 years. And then all of a sudden it started disappearing, and it was like, what's going on here? Why is the Japanese dub just disappearing? Well, what had happened was the Sonic the Hedgehog movie came out. And for cross-promotion, what they did in Japan was they re-released Sonic X on television to promote the movie. And that also included the third season, which officially never had a screening in Japan because of poor ratings. In fact, I get into that later about its weirdness, but for the longest time... So, my plan of watching all of Sonic X in the Japanese dub was foiled because of... yeah, the movie. But there were some funny things I noted in the movie. Funny thing. So, if you watch the Japanese dub, they don't omit certain words. And so when you're watching the Japanese dub, you'll see English appear. It's roughly coherent. Apparently it's more like English. They have some problems, but it's mostly coherent, and you can understand what they're trying to say. By the way, this was when the Area 51 raid was big, and I just decided to do this joke because, of course. In the Japanese dub, there's a sequence where the characters are getting their documents. It's basically the world saying, we're supporting you, we're going to make sure that you have legal documents in case you get sued or something. Osho wants to make sure Tails knows how to fly, that sort of thing. In the Japanese dub, they actually give Amy a Social Security card. And it says Social Security card. And it has her numbers. When I saw that, I went, oh no. So, I'm sure the Japanese didn't anticipate that to be a real thing, but oh no, that number is out in the public now. And I was tempted to contact the Social Security office and be like, hey, you may want to retire this number. It makes an appearance in Sonic X in the Japanese dub. But I later did more research and learned, oh no, there's something about this number that's incorrect. So even if it was used, it's not a legitimate Social Security number. You can't use it. What gets weird with that, though, is they went out... It's funny because they went out of their way to use that distinction and that it's a Social Security card. I don't know how they knew this, but because of the numbers... For those who don't know, for Social Security cards, currently Social Security card, the numbers are random. They're always random. They've been random since like 2010, I think. But back when this came out, the first three numbers of your Social Security card indicated where it was issued. And because of the three numbers on Amy's number, I had identified this show takes place in Ohio, of all places. And I like to think that even currently, Sonic X takes place in Ohio. Clearly that's not the case. They don't take place in Ohio, but if you're in Ohio and you happen to see all this... Other noteworthy changes, I had thought about doing... This was one of the first times I was debating doing a History of Power Rangers-esque review. I watched Linkara, and I liked his History of Power Rangers. And at the time, I was thinking, well, I'm going to do something similar to this and Jesu Utaku's History of Digimon. But I realized it would take too much. It would be too much commentating on the different episodes. And so I just simply decided we're just going to do a rough estimate of the story. That's just how it's going to work because it's easier that way. And it fits more of how I do things. And if I hit into any copyright, hey, there's no audio. It's just me talking over footage. Which is also why it's flipped. It's mirrored. That you'll notice that with a lot of my reviews, I tend to mirror any footage. That's an old YouTube poop method of going around copyright. It doesn't always work. It caused some problems with Tamers with one copyright sequence. But oddly enough, the copyright with Sonic X, I still have one claim on it, but it isn't from Sonic X, and I'll explain that later in when it comes up. So yeah, here you can see the edit. They turned it all into gibberish. It was originally words. It was somewhat coherent when I read it, but it's different. There again, you see my mirror. Whenever I do that, I try it whenever there's words to make it normal, but then flip it back. Yeah, that's another thing. When I went over the timeline and realized 50 years and it's the 13th president, it's like, that's Millard Fillmore. This would make it steampunk. Other funny connections. Those secret agents they show. If you look up the concept art of Sonic X, they're actually given the same names as the characters from Men in Black. They're deliberately a reference, and they're even drawn in the same pose as the Men in Black characters. It's weird. There are a few other references that pop up. I think in one of the DVDs they reference, I think, Sniper, some movie. When you realize that this was intended to promote Sonic in Japan, and you see these references, it's very weird. And then you got your Kato reference. They really throw references in here, and I'm surprised. If I had done this before, I probably would have paid more attention to that. Another reference to the laser piss. Here we have George Bush. It's interesting because I like, you have Bill Clinton as the president in SA2, and then you come to Sonic X, and it's more like George Bush. Although I think they officially say he looks more like Bill Clinton. I say he looks more like George Bush, but I didn't reference that. So, as I said earlier, when I do research, I tend to look up TV tropes a lot. And this was one of the sections where they said that Sonic's considered a Ubermensch. And by Ubermensch, they don't mean, what happened in World War II. They're referring to what Freud refers to as the Ubermensch is someone who's above good and is always right. And apparently, in this case, Sonic is technically fits that description, which is weird. I never saw it like that. One of those weird writing things. It's also weird how often they reference the different games. Like, the Chaotix are here because of Sonic Heroes, and then they reference Sonic Battle for like 3 episodes. They could have done so much more with this show, with all its connections to Sonic, but instead they went the standard, oh yeah, we're just going to reference we're just using this as a vehicle to advertise the games coming out, and we're going to reference a tournament arc. It's weird. It's one of those unusual elements. And then here we have that other Finn moment. This was an arc I never paid attention to. I think I deliberately skipped it because it doesn't add anything. This explanation made no sense. I don't think it's different in the Japanese dub, so I don't have any comment on what it was supposed to be. Although apparently in the Japanese dub, they don't call it Mobius, they call it like Green Hill Zone or something. So yeah, and at the time I was into JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so interesting little thing. Looking at Robotnik and Chris, they share a lot of color and design elements, so I'm wondering if at some point they were going to imply that Chris and Eggman are related in some way, or maybe Eggman is Chris in the future, but it doesn't go that route, and I think that's just a red herring. Yep, that almost happens, and here they are at their DACA, just... Yeah, that was, again, the movie had just came out, so that was the joke. You got one of those weird 3D elements, you have... Yeah, I don't think they changed the audio there. Here, originally, there's a W. If you notice in a lot of anime, whenever they have McDonald's, but they can't say McDonald's, they'll usually say Wuckdonald's, which is where apparently Chris worked. Yeah, so here's the thing about season 3. I didn't watch all of it. When I originally... I did see most of the episodes on first run. But I didn't see everything. The Molly episode is the one episode I don't have much connection, and I think there's one other. I think that's the bar episode. In the Japanese dub, that's the one where Shadow says he much prefers to be dead. But I've never seen that episode, so... and in this case, because it just kept going and going, all I did was... I had the footage up and I just pressing the fast forward. You have to understand... My reasoning was we were running into time crunch and I was leaving for the Navy and I wanted to get this done before I left. So it was just... I know enough of the show. It's not much of a story. We can just skip forward and we can go from there. This plot design never was a bit weird. I get what they're going for. I don't know why Vanilla had Chris's clothes. It's never explained, it's never brought up, but it's convenient because now they don't have to change character design sheets. And now we have the space battleship Yamato. I have a friend he's very big into Star Blazers and space battleship Yamato, and he had told me that one of the things he and his fellow fans of the show say about this is it's just Star Blazers but with Sonic. And knowing that now, I can see it. Yeah, I remember watching. Yeah, Dark Spine Sonic, which doesn't go anywhere. Yeah, season 3 had a lot of concepts that don't go anywhere, and they don't bother with them, and they don't use them. We do have the Cosmo and Tails ship, which still on occasion gets referenced in media. They more often than not use it to show that Tails still has a thing, or Tails had a love in the past, or just as a reference to the show. But I think the most recent they did that was, I think it was the Sonic Chronicles, but I think there was also a official photo they used. Warhammer 40k, you already knew that, but Emperor's Text-to-Speech, I'm sad that what happened to that show. I loved Emperor's Text-to-Speech. I'm sad to see that it was shut down. They had to shut it down for copyright. It's understandable, but I'm wondering how many people got into 40k because of text-to-speech, and seeing what 40k does nowadays. But yeah, little footage there. In hindsight, I probably should have done a Power Rangers joke, because there is a planet in Power Rangers called Aquarius. But I don't really watch Power Rangers. How convenient. We've got 20 more minutes. Pretty much. There really isn't much to say what happened behind the scenes here. Like I said, it was just a constant clicking fast forward, because I had already seen this multiple times. Yeah, that was a sequence that I had trouble with, because I have a blue Yeti mic. It works. It's not perfect, but it works. And I didn't know how that would sound. And my muffling is pretty... Yeah, just roll with it. I know they say that the Japanese dub is the English dub is a little more tough with it, but I remember that Tails was still a sad scene, because Tails had to kill Cosmo. It was still a sad scene to me. And then we got another Finn. When I was young, for the longest time, I was wondering when they would do a third season, because they kept rerunning, and I remember when the show ended, they had said, that's the season finale, not the series finale. But no, this was the series finale. There's never been a season 3. And this is where they really increased the animation for some reason. I don't know why they opted to do that. They just did. I prefer the Japanese version, where they gave actual footage and not just reused. So Yeah, when I flamethrowers. When I was a kid, there was a YouTuber by the name of Spax3, and he had done briefly a redubbing of Sonic X, where he voiced Sonic. If you find it, it's rather cringeworthy and not worth watching. But it was an interesting little thing to see just how different things were. Nowadays, you don't see redubs all that often. You usually see a bridge series, but yeah, this was one of the first times where I had identified this is right where the show changes. Here we have, here we have a good start, and it works well. I'm into it, and then we get to this next block, and it just feels. Couldn't we move this prior? I apologize if I'm doing this a lot. It's just there's a lot of unknowns here. The first episode of Sonic X that I watched was... What was it? It's the Cream episode where Chris's parents come home and Chris has to hide the gang and Cream is running around. That was the first episode I had ever seen, and I had wanted to, in the review, talk about that episode. Specifically to say this is an episode that was noteworthy to me because it's the first episode, but like many things, it was pulled. I opted to not put it in because it didn't flow well, it doesn't make sense, and it's not really that great of an episode. It's... bleh. The other was the Knuckles episode, which I really like. I like the Knuckles episode, I just wish they did more with it, but they don't do anything with Knuckles. He just kind of exists. Like I said, I like how Sonic X did the SA2 arc. I do wish they spent more time on it, and I wish they did better with the music, because the music in the SA2 adaptation, they actually use the SA2 music, but they removed that because 4Kids has their own internal Sonic sound production company, and so they opted to use that as opposed to the music, and that's one of the first signs of it didn't work. And this is like the first time we see Pachamac with his eyes open. And it only took like 5 years. Yeah, this was in hindsight, knowing that about Eggman, that wasn't a good writing design. They needed to explain better, but given what we know of the original idea, which was this was to take place on Sonic's planet, that may be a holdover. And again, they how do you adapt SA2? It doesn't really follow. It's significantly different. My original idea was to actually show the cuts, but in Vegas I couldn't cut it that enough, so I just sped it, which was new learning abilities. So again, not indicative of how I did the review, but if I were to have done this again, I think I would review the Japanese dub, just with how different it is. But again, you have to remember the Japanese Blu-ray was not available. We didn't have Discotek did not release the Japanese dub. It was just the English dub. So, yeah. So if I ever do this again, I'd do the Japanese dubbing. Here we have Carl Johnson from GTA. That's the other thing I like about YouTube. So many of the artists have put up green screens that I can use for jokes. I do my best to credit them when I can. I think there's a few other ships in there they referenced, but the space battleship was the one I immediately recognized. I think they reference a Gundam ship in there, but I don't know enough about Gundam to really say. Yeah, Sonic sleeps a lot in the early seasons. I don't know why. I don't know why that was the way he was written. Because that's not how he's written in the games. That's not how he's appeared in the games. That's not how he appears in the previous material. So, but that appears to be what Sega wanted. So this was something interesting on a second watch. When I actually saw that on a second watch, I realized I really wasn't paying attention when I watched as a kid. And so knowing that on future viewings was like, huh, that makes a little more sense with Sonic. That's the direction they're going. Yeah, the baseball episode was weird. I for a while thought that was supposed to be a reference to a certain team or an individual. As far as I can tell, they're not referencing anything. It's baseball. That's it. You know, they're not a reference to Babe Ruth. They're not a reference to Jackie Robinson. It's just baseball. That's it. Move on. And I thought there was more to it, but there isn't. So, yeah, Amy has come a long way since Sonic X. They've really moved more towards making her own character. Yeah, Knuckles was another disappointing character. As a kid, I was surprised at how little he's in the plot and how little he does anything. Even years later, it isn't until the second season when he really does stuff. And at this point, I don't really have much of the background to say outside until a certain sequence comes up. I like Topaz and Rouge's interactions, but again, not much to say about the characters. Much of what I say here is pretty much what I feel about them. I don't have much to add. I kind of wonder if Eggman being a professor, which was from Sonic Generations, was a kind of a reference to this in Sonic X, but I kind of suspect it isn't. He does have his moments, but yeah, pretty standard. What's that form of comedy that's popular in Japan? They use it in Digimon Frontier. Yeah, I don't know what was the original idea with Sam Speed. He seems like a character that they had a plan and then they ran out of time with. And yeah, I only recognize Helen because of that episode. I didn't know. I thought he was his name was Token. That's a reference to South Park. So that joke came from a legitimate problem because I didn't know these characters' names and I had to go on the wiki. Because for a while I thought, oh, he must be named Token. No, it's Davis. Oh, okay, sure. So, funny thing about the parents and grandpa, in the Japanese dub, and if I had known this, I would have added this joke. They occasionally flash info cards in the center. This is generally to show commercial breaks. Someone noticed that when it came to Grandpa Chuck's age, he would have been roughly 12 years old when he had his son. Someone did not check the ages, and it doesn't appear in the English dub because those end cards don't appear, but they are present in the Japanese dub, and if I had known about that, I would have used that as a joke, but I didn't, so but years later, I don't know why Chris is popular in Japan. I don't know. I understand he's supposed to be a character we're supposed to empathize with, but I don't know why he was popular in Japan. Is it because he's empathizable, or is there something else going on here? It's understandable why he's disliked in America because he pulls from the other characters. But as for Japan, I don't know. Yeah, here's that. Whenever I watch something, I try to think how I would improve it, and this kind of gives you an idea of what I would have done to improve the show. But I'm not a writer. I'm not a screenwriter. I'm not really much of anything. Yeah, I don't think I'm using food as a prop ever again. That was such a difficult take to do, of buying 2 candy boxes, and I quickly realized there's too much in this for the joke, so I'll have to eat one or get rid of the most and just go from there with 1 box. It was a bit much, and moving forward, I don't think I'm going to be doing any food jokes like that. I almost tried it with Digimon Tamers, but it wasn't used because, again, food, and it didn't fit the joke. Yeah, this was another complaint I had, because in context, it makes sense to have Chris related to Maria, but they don't do it, so I don't know if it was because they had multiple companies or if there was something else going behind the scenes, but the animation in Sonic X is weird. I liked it when I was a kid. I don't know why. Something happened in between me being a kid and growing up that made me go, this is bad. And yeah, I had to hunt around for different sequences where animation looked weird. And again, this is why you have a notebook, people. This is why weird animation sequences. This is where you have a notebook so you can record when you encounter sequences like this. Because when you have sequences like that, it's a good idea to record because you don't know when you'll get gold. I'm sorry, I'm just checking time because I don't know what to add. I think I went over too much of my behind the scenes. Yeah, when I was a kid, I didn't like Chris Griffith, but in hindsight, that was mostly because I was influenced by Spax, and I've gotten better with it. He does a good job, Chris Griffith. So, funny thing about Kathleen Doheny, if it's either Kathleen Doheny or it's Kathleen Doheny. She voices Tails in the movie. And I think she's gone on to become the official voice of Tails. But she originally got, as far as I can tell, her first movie appearance was in the Digimon movie, which caught me off guard because it was like, wait, hold on, wait, what? These are the same actors? How did this happen? And Mike Pollock is about the only guy that's returned. Hold on, I don't think it was Doheny. Never mind. This is commentary, not that. I do wonder what will happen when Mike Pollock passes, because he does a good job as Eggman, and I don't know what they'll do how they'll find what they'll do for a new actor. I've seen parts of Prime. I'm not a big fan of that voice. Wait, is Mike Pollock in Sonic Prime? Because if he's in Sonic Prime, is he in Prime? That you can usually get around copyright like that. Brian Drummond. Oh no. It's hard to pronounce. Her surname's hard to pronounce. Catherine Doheny. It's not O'Shaughnessy. That's what I was getting confused. It's Shaughnessy. She appeared in Digimon. Doheny doesn't. In Sonic Prime, it's Ocean Dub Vegeta. Ocean? I didn't really grow up with Dragon Ball Z, so hold on. Vegeta. Ah, I see. Okay. Brian Drummond. Yeah, I didn't grow up with... Yeah, I saw a few things of Dragon Ball Z, but that really wasn't my favorite anime at the time. If you're wondering where that sax music comes from, that comes from Epic Sax Man from Eurovision. I decided to use that as a change of pace from other audios because I thought it would be a fun little joke. Remember to keep orientation up, people, because whenever you have little sequences like that, you kind of need to know how it's going to look on screen. Yeah, this was one of the weirdest changes I appreciate that 4Kids did that as a kid. As someone who's an adult, I kind of would have liked if they kept that dub in, but it is what it is. You can't... I can understand why they changed it. That wouldn't fly in America.
Like I said, Sonic X was produced by TMS Entertainment.
So, back to some behind the scenes. Originally, I wanted to show, for each character, show a different thing on top of them to say what they represent. That's why you have the president's advisor say, Sega executive. Another little thing, might as well pause this right now. So, I originally wanted different titles for the different characters when they appear in reference to the companies. I decided that was just too much work and it would be better to not, and that's a holdover from that. As for the footage you saw there, the one about the Russian game show, I thought that was the actual dub. I thought that was the actual subtitles from that. That is not. That's apparently a joke sub that was made for that, and I did not catch that. If I were to redo this, I would try and omit those subtitles. But like I said, I didn't know that. Think about that statue. It's been identified. It's been refurbished. It's back in its prime. That was the thing at the time that fans were like, what is this? Yeah, this is actually on Wikipedia. This is a map of every country where Sonic X aired, which is surprising. But yeah, this is where you would have seen. This sequence is where you would have seen the different characters with different titles representing different elements. But I decided against it. Again, it would have been a bit much. So if I had changed this, I would have done that. But it's gotten better. I will say this about One Piece. It's certainly recovered from 4Kids. It's done better. So that sequence is no longer valid anymore. But it gives you an idea of how much can change in a few years. I don't know why they changed those fourth wall dubs. I don't know if it's just 4Kids didn't think kids in America would understand it, but it was before Deadpool was big, so. The Molly scene. So, yeah, Molly was a character that makes one appearance. She reminds Shadow of Maria, and then she dies. Yeah, in this dub, I actually made reference to the pole dancers, and this actually hit a copyright claim. The music was claimed. For the longest time, it wasn't, because apparently the artist that made that music did say, for the memes, it's all right. At least that's what I was under the impression. Apparently that's not the case. It was copyright claimed, and I don't think I'll ever use that joke ever again. But it's funny because for the longest time, that section, my review was not up. It was actually removed because I was going through Navy basic training, and I didn't want to get hit with a UCMJ violation for copyright. So, for the longest time, this was not available. When the review came back online, the Coffin Dancers copyright hit was still there, but the Japanese opening dub wasn't. And I don't know if it's just that Sega lost interest, or because the movie had already gone through, they didn't care. It was one of those weird, I got lucky. I got lucky in that case. So that kind of gives you an idea of how copyright can work. Sometimes they will stay, sometimes they don't, and it could go, you don't know. Moving forward, if I ever did I try to avoid music references and memes these days. I still get hit with it on occasion. Digimon Tamers had an issue. Still don't know how that was problematic. But if you're wondering why I don't mess too much with copyright, it's because I don't make any money, and if I do, I'll be okay with them taking that cash. In the case of the voice, I actually did a little bit of looking into it because, this has to be something. Because people thought it was a dead voice actor. It's like, nope, it's just because Sega wanted new actors. They wanted consistency. But there was another thing about the Sonic X I wanted to bring up. Oh, right. For the longest time, I was wondering why... So for the longest time, there was this rumor about that the third season of Sonic X... This is it. I tried looking around for where that started. I couldn't find any evidence. No wiki recognizes it. TV Tropes doesn't bring it up. No one talks about it. And I kind of came to the conclusion that this is a rumor, because if you're saying that a French company would have been helped fund it, then what's the French company's name? Who's this company? And I can't find any evidence of a French company. And ultimately, it also led me to the question of, if there's a Japanese dub of the third, why would a Japanese dub of the third season exist? You don't just make a dub of a show. You don't make a show and then give it a Japanese dub and then censor it for the English dub. You would have just made it for the English dub and that's it. And that was when I learned, oh yeah, it was because it didn't do that well in Japan. It didn't do well on its first run, and the broadcasting company just said, no, we're not airing it, we're going to end it, and anything else is going on streaming. And then the movie came about and changed that, so... This kind of gives you an idea of what my opinion on this is. If I have kids, I would like them to watch Sonic X, but at the same time, I don't think it would be an anime that I'd be too wild with. It'd just be something I'd put in the background. I still like Sonic X. I'm glad that I grew up watching it. I'm glad I got the chance to watch Sonic X on Saturday mornings. I'm glad that it lasted as long as it did, but there was one joke I might as well bring up. The original idea was to also play the European opening, which is different. Yeah, the European opening to Sonic X is not good, and my original idea was to play it as a joke, but I decided against it because it doesn't fit anywhere. And that's kind of the behind the scenes thing. We're going to hit that off before I get hit with a copyright. So that is the 100 subscriber special. We learned a few things. I think next time if I do this, I'll limit how many of these shows I'll do, because I'm already starting to lose my voice. As many of you know, the next review I did would be the Henry Stickmin collection, followed by the Last Stance collection. And one days I will do a dub on a commentary track on that. Perhaps the 200 subscriber special. But no, this commentary track has helped me figure out where to go with things. like I said, I do hope to cut these to better fit as individual episodes. I don't know when I'll do that. When they disappear, it'll probably be after the Digimon Frontiers review. Until then, look for the Digimon Frontiers review, hopefully in November, where we'll go over that, and then there will be finally but if we get 200 subscribers, we will do the Flash games that I reviewed. Digimon, I kind of want to keep limited because I'm not gonna lie. I originally intended this to just be Sonic Adventure 2, and the OVA, and I decided, you know what, we might as well add all the Sonic shows together. That may have been a mistake. But regardless, that pretty much is the end of this commentary. Like and subscribe, comment, the standard things. So, be safe, y'all, and see you all in Digimon Frontier.